Evening. First of all, welcome to the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. There's just a few notes regarding attendance tonight. Stephen Doyle has sent regrets. Ashley Bellwood may be joining electronically. She was not able to join in person. And Taylor Workman is joining remotely. And I'd like to acknowledge with respect that we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, and we're honored to have the opportunity to build strong working relationships with the people of the Songhees and Kosepsum nations. So at 6:30, I call us to order, and I'm looking for a motion to approve today's agenda as presented. Thank you. We have a motion. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, we're moving along. And we have minutes from January 20th. Is there any errors or omissions that committee members would like to make note of? Not seeing any. Could I get moved by committee member Jansen? All those in favor? Great. Any opposed? Unopposed. Perfect. Public participation. Okay, there we go. Anyone from the public who'd like to speak to the committee? Did you wish to speak? No? With respect to the need? Absolutely. Anything you want to tell us about, we're happy to hear it. Just push the button on the microphone there. Perfect. You're on.
Okay. Oh, not bad. I have been working and living at Hatley Drive at the intersection before the big blind hill. And I sit outside quite often, check the cars to find out how many stop. They don't. They sweep with no pedestrian walk. And I just about got hit on 2 occasions. And I had an outfit like this on, and it was clear as anything. The problem with that is that there were two children, probably around 9, that weren't sure where to go or how to cross the street. And since that time, over the 4 years, I have seen 97% of the cars do not abide by the signs in that area. So it's very cumbersome to have to stand there for 20 minutes and try and get across the street safely and maybe go down into the park. But that's my opinion. And then I got a second person to do the same thing, see if they saw what I saw. I would be prepared to donate the money to put a pedestrian in that place. I did have a conversation with a gentleman from the workshop and that, and he had a suggestion, I had a suggestion, and it was so clear what could save us from being run over from people that are paying attention to their driving or don't give a darn.
Perfect.
Thank you
so much. Could we
you.
just get your name for the minutes?
Do I want to give it? Oh, yes.
Just your name.
It's Sharon Sinclair.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Much appreciated. That way we can perhaps get staff to get in touch so that we can bring that information forward to council.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It was just a point of clarity, and maybe I missed it, but this Sharon, Miss Sinclair, spoke about a pedestrian implement, but I'm unclear exactly where that might be. Okay, so at the stop sign we're talking about? Okay. No, that's good. Thank you so much.
All right. Moving along, I'm trying to decide whether I follow my notes or follow my agenda. We're going to move on then, seeing no other public participation unless there was anyone else. Not seeing anyone coming up. So we'll move on to our new business section, 5.1 Cairndale Road.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee members, for being here tonight. Staff have brought forward to you a report on the Cairndale and VMP intersection. I'll go through the report or through the presentation here, slide by slide, but technically, or I guess generally speaking, what staff are after tonight is to share the 3 concepts that have been developed through our consultant team. We'd like to look at the intersection itself, the roads leading up to the intersection, and talk about tenants, amenities, things like that we want to look to bring forward to council and suggest form our basis of further design in that intersection. We've taken a stab with our consultant at developing sort of a high level, low, medium, and high concept. Inside of those, there are still individual tenants, so we don't have to stay in that low strictly, the medium strictly, the high strictly. We can pull and put things together there. So that's the conversation we want to have tonight. A bit of a background on the project itself. The project stems from our 2015 TMP. It aligns with our DCC program, both from a timing and need perspective. Through Urban Systems, we did a sort of a memo and a warrant for a roundabout versus signalization. Signalization came through as the preferred treatment for this intersection. And then this has been included in our 2025 financial plan and brought forward as well in our 2026. In April of 2025, we brought forward an alternate cross-section for VMP, and that was approved in April, as I said there, in 2025. And that has been incorporated into the concepts brought forward tonight. November 2025, the contract for the design of this intersection was awarded to McElhaney. And these concepts and the work we've done leading us to this point has been done with McElhaney. And then we brought this to council to look to get clarity and move forward further into the design process. And it was referred to committee, and that's why we're here tonight with committee. So contextualizing the project itself, I think I've spoken to this concept before of our SDS bylaw. It indicates what we would do for a collector road. And this is a small snippet, but I think generally the committee's familiar with our SDS bylaw and sort of the tenets of the cross-section we would implement should this be a new development in a greenfield situation. This is not. This is an infill, existing neighborhood. So we look at what are those tenants, what can we fit with the existing infrastructure, the existing right-of-way, the existing topography, geography, all those things. So just wanted to ground that in there. From our 2015 TMP, our ATMP and draft, and what we move forward with in our current TMP work. These road network maps that you can see on the bottom, we'll blow them up more a little later. But they've indicated that this is sort of a pedestrian and a cyclist connection as part of our network for many, many years. So that just speaks again to those tenets of the project for Cairndale. Do we want to look at bike lanes? Do we want to look at sidewalks and those amenities? So again, just grounding us back in some of those governing documents we have at our disposal. Project context, as I said, this is an infill project. This is an existing neighborhood. There's existing amenities. Like I said, there's a sidewalk on the north side. There's shoulder On the south, wide lanes, there's parking as an amenity right now. But we've got some grade challenges. We've got sidewalk not at back of property line. This project is going to affect these neighbors. Now, this is a community project, not a neighborhood project, but that doesn't mean we don't take into account existing infrastructure, existing residents. So constraints, topography, driveways, steepness, possibility for retaining walls, all the rest. Driveway access is impacting existing property owners as well as, right of way, even though it is the city's property, it may not be known to that existing resident that it is city property. Design considerations, active transportation facilities, again, bike lane, sidewalks, both sides, one side, none. Those are the conversations we want to have tonight. And then the limitation of, the ultimate cross section as per the SDS bylaw. It probably could be achieved, but it would be very expensive and very impactful to this neighborhood in depending on your perspective, potentially a detrimental way. So balancing that cost benefit analysis of infill projects in Suffolk Colwood and what are we trying to achieve in terms of traffic safety and road user safety and the multimodal goals of the community. So option framework, all options include Cairndale West active transportation improvements, new turning lane on Cairndale East, and signalized intersection upgrades. So that's sort of the basis of what we're trying to tackle for all options. How the options differ is extent of active transportation infrastructure, how much of the road widening we're doing and the extent of that, and then the cost and property impacts. So those are the low, medium, and high. Those are the things that really change as we look at those different options. So we'll go through again sort of the specific options themselves. So Cairndale West, so this is the portion of Cairndale leading up to Haida off of VMP. We don't see a difference between the low, medium, and high in this section. We found sort of a concept that, again, we, from a staff level and the governing documents and that analysis, not to say committee can't suggest other things and we can't bring that forward, but this is what we've worked with our consultant on in terms of achieving betterment to the area, better connectivity, safety, but not being overly intrusive in this neighborhood and spending a lot of money. So you'll see here, generally speaking, we're looking at using the existing sidewalk, moving our way up the north side of Haida or Cairndale. There'll be a slight new extension connecting to the existing. There'll be implementation of a new crosswalk, slight alteration to the center median, crosswalk, a little bit of new sidewalk connecting to existing. Right now, the laning of this, there's a lot of width. So we would look to redo the painting to allow for a sharrow situation for cyclists coming downhill. I'm not doing a great job of driving this, but so the downhill, which I'm going up right now, this would be considered a sharrow because the speed differential between cyclists and cars would not be as great. On the uphill, we'd look to implement a new bike lane, but not a buffered, just a single white line indicating space for cyclists to cycle up the hill, come around and connect onto Haida. So that's the basis of the concept from a staff and sort of consultation point of view so far. Again, at the end of this, we'll go through and we can beat this up, comment on it, add, take away, whatever else. Cairndale East VMP low cost option. So we're sort of capturing both segments. This is the VMP and the Cairndale. For medium, we'll do the same, and for high as well. This would be sort of bare minimum to get our intersection and signalization on VMP. So this would involve having the pull bases and pulls all located for the ultimate, so the 5-laning location, but then push buttons would be put at the sidewalk locations and all the geometry for the intersection to only be a 3-lane through. So we're minimizing curb and gutter line, we're minimizing hard surfacing. You'll see that there's not a full extension of the multi-use path to the bike lane on the north. Not fully paved, it's gravel heading back south towards the bus lane on the other side of VMP. Just limited works to get us future proof for a future expansion. I would, whenever that may be through analysis and when we need to 5-lane VMP. So that's the VMP part. And then the Cairndale piece, still gaining that left turn bay storage to allow for the right-hand turns, moving off of Cairndale into VMP. This would be a Sharrow bike lane situation for both the up and downhill. So something to consider there. This would be retaining the existing sidewalk on Cairndale, so not taking it out, not pushing things to property line. So basically that like low impact to the existing Cairndale while still tying into the proposed new VMP. Then we go into the medium, you'll see, fairly significant additional hard surfacing. We formalized this pullout for the bus on the north side of VMP, continuation of that multi-use path and then terminating into the shoulder. So more of a mixing zone, more of a transition point, slightly more formalization on this southeast corner of VMP. Quite a bit more infrastructure here, getting that hard surfacing sidewalk again, defining and constructing that bus pullout on VMP. And then I think it's pretty similar geometry here and sort of infrastructure connecting onto the Cairndale west, sorry. So that's our medium on VMP. And then for Cairndale, you'll see that there's, again, retaining that sidewalk on Cairndale on the north side, but there's a fairly significant push south and reinstatement and reprofiling of existing driveways, more significant line painting. And then we're looking to implement in this concept a bike lane on the uphill and then a Sharrow situation on the downhill. For the high cost, apologies for panning out so much on the VMP, but essentially staff aren't recommending this, but this would be the full 5-laning of VMP. So, same infrastructure for the signalization, but we wouldn't need those remote push buttons at the other sort of the curb and gutter for the temporary installation. We would have it fully 5-laned all the way through. It would be the ultimate cross-section, ultimate intersection. You can see that multi-use path heads all the way down until the tapering, all the way up until the tapering the other direction. It's a significant amount of infrastructure and investment to our 5-lane. And then moving on to Cairndale, this is where we no longer in this concept look to retain that north sidewalk. It would be removing that, pushing the newly instated sidewalk closer to property line, still not suggesting to property line. So it's finding that happy medium of, maybe not happy, but a medium of still having compliant driveways on the north side. You can see full reinstatement. I'll do my little arrow thing again. This would result in a full reinstatement of this residence driveway, a half reinstatement of this residence driveway, and nearly the full thing here. Not significant in height, but fairly significant retaining walls to get this set up. No property acquisition. As you can see, property line is still not, we're not at property line. This would get the bike lane on the uphill, the through lane, the storage bays, the downhill lane, and then the downhill bike lane and a sidewalk on the south side. Again, those driveways on the south side, significant-ish reinstatement. They're already non-compliant driveways. And this would, continue that non-compliance, but they're still doable, they're still attainable. So it's striking that balance of sorts of getting closer to the SDS bylaw in terms of amenities of a sidewalk on both sides, a bike lane on both sides, but still not achieving the sidewalk width or the bike lane protection and things like that. So that's the details there. An optional piece that has come up through sort of the analysis of this corridor and the project overall was that potentially transition between existing Cairndale and the new section of Cairndale that we may be constructing. An opportunity to put a traffic circle or a traffic button in that intersection of Marianne and Cairndale, just to transition those road users of all types, whether it be pedestrian, cyclist, or car, give them a little bit of interest and let them know, we're coming into a different cross section here, a different piece, bit of traffic calming, bit of normalizing of traffic flow. So the consultant has put this forward as an option, and the costing is sort of in the breakdown here. So again, we've done some preliminary costing here of the low, the medium, the high. We can pick them apart and play with tenants of them. And then that traffic button is estimated at about $46,000. Project schedule. we're sort of into it right now with our conceptual design, looking to get some decisions made, some direction back to our consultants to get actually into the detailed design and progressing on an option and a plan. That would be the plan for this spring and summer, and then potentially have some construction starting in the fall. But you know, wanting to take pause, make sure we make the right decisions, make the right calls here, get the right design in place before we move into construction. So this could be changes, could be affected, but that would be the plan right now. The other piece that isn't spoken to in this presentation, but I'll just mention here, is there is an active application to a UBCM grant, a very significant grant for large funding, which could come into play relative to the design itself. So, you know, if funding is there and we want to talk about those amenities, but Colwood doesn't technically have to pay for them, might change the conversation a bit. So something to be aware of. That is the end of my presentation. As I said before, just sort of wrapping it back up into what staff are looking for tonight. It's really about amenities, tenants of that corridor, what we want to see from a hierarchy of design components. You know, that sidewalk on the north side, do we want to keep existing? Do we want to put a new one up? Do we want a sidewalk on the south side? Amenities for cyclists. I think we've tackled consistently the car portion, that, you know, the storage is there, the analysis has been done on the intersection itself, the flow. It's how far do we want to go with the active transportation piece for this project today?
I'll recognize Dean Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few questions. I mean, each of the designs looks like an improvement for that area, so it'll be interesting to see what the committee focuses on. So complete loss of parking for that 1 or 2 block stretch, both sides. Thank you. I mean, there's only, say, half a dozen houses, but it is well used kind of street parking area. A Sharrow, I think I got it, but
yeah, thank you. Through the chair, the intent of a share is basically the cars and the bikes are sharing them.
got it.
Yeah.
The pedestrian button, I couldn't quite get where that was located. What crossing was that focusing on? Was it across VMP, I take it?
Oh, apologies again, through the chair. A little tough to explain with my hands and my voice, but I'll give it a shot. So 5 laning, we would have ultimately we're trying to plan to allow for a 5 laning of VMP. So the signal bases, the signal poles themselves and the stanchions, everything like that will be built at ultimate build out. But when we only have 3 lanes going through, you've got 3.5, 3.7 meters, whatever it ends up being, distance from that pole to where you want to push to cross the road. So all movements will have pedestrian signals and walking time. You can cross VMP, you can cross Cairndale, but those push buttons are going to be, they're called like remote push buttons. Sure. They have a new little, you know, 48-inch high push button that has to be located within 2 feet of curb and gutter, which will be many meters away from the pole.
Interesting. So it would be awkward just to set it on the furthest pole. Like
it just doesn't meet spec.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to have it within a certain distance of curb and gutter.
I got it now. So a remote pedestrian button. I got you. I think one of your drawings showed it, but I was trying to recall what side of the Parkway we were focusing on for the multi-use path, and that was the east side, right? Okay, so it would connect around the corner onto. I noticed that there's crosswalks both north and south of the intersection on VMP. I'm not sure if there's a cost difference or not, if it's just painted lines, but you know, we could certainly ask people to go to cross one side street and then hit the one crosswalk going across the other side. I mean, is it 6 one, half dozen the other? Does it really make a difference?
A little bit. I mean, the traffic is stopped anyway. There's a little bit less line painting and things like that. So we could explore that as a potential.
I don't want you to waste any time on it, but if it was a significant value, then yeah, I would say it's not too much to ask to nip across the road to catch the crosswalk going east-west. I think that's it for questions. Thank you. I'll yield, Madam Chair.
Great. Colin.
Thank you. I do have some questions. It might be a bit of a laundry list, so I do apologize for that. My first question is kind of like 2 design things. Did you guys consider, or perhaps there were certain, you know, geographical constraints, or, you know, just budget issues around pedestrian islands for the highway, because it is a bit of a long crosswalk over multiple lanes. and the option perhaps of continuous raised crosswalks for the crosswalks that have a stop sign where vehicles have to stop compared to, actually across the highway. And my other one was, how does this generally play into the possible VMP massive expansion of making it, 4 or 5 lanes in the future? Like, how does these fully tie into that? Like, if we pick like the low or medium, does that mean we have to tear everything up again in the future for those future expansions? And my last one is a bit of a concern on the Cairndale West part. It's got the bike lane that kind of goes up the hill, or the right side of the road that goes up. I'm worried that with just a paint line there, vehicles that are going up the hill there on the curve may be oblivious to their, excuse my French, but like rear of their vehicle or boats behind, and will maybe even completely cross over to that line. And if any bike is there, that could be problematic.
Thank you, through the chair. I'll just get you to repeat your first one. I'll just go one by one if that's right, Colin.
Pardon?
Just repeat your first question if you could. I think we'll just go one by
Oh
one.
yeah, first question. Was there any consideration around pedestrian islands for the highway crosswalks? And if there's any consideration around continuous raised crosswalks for the portions that have a stop sign?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I think that one's sort of probably better for our later topic relative to the TMP. So that's like standard of design for intersections, standard for active transportation. Like certainly something we can look at relative to design standards and what we're looking at today in Colwood. We've not looked to implement those for these areas. Now, again, that being said, this is a committee. We hear your voice. Committee can speak and raise something to council to look at a different approach. I would say in terms of refuge islands, while it looks like there's a very large right-of-way here, and there is a very large right-of-way here, from a topography standpoint, there's limitations for sure. And looking at that multi-use path and trying to align the 5 laning in the future and getting that maximum multi-use path with a little bit of separation, having it wider for a refuge lane is or a refuge stop in the middle, it takes up valuable right of way. Again, not to say it can't be done, not to say it can't be considered. Balancing the cost, the need, the application, I think that's what we would seek direction from council to look at a higher level of expectation for our detailed design. So can be considered, wouldn't be in today's approach and how we move forward with that. I think you asked about tying in relative to the future VMP and the 5 laning. So that's exactly what I was talking to before about the expensive infrastructure, the bases, the poles, all those types of things. It'll be fully pre-plumbed, pre-designed, pre-allowed for the multi-use path, the 5 laning, all storage bays, everything needed for our ultimate cross section. So the ultimate design. And then tapered back down with the minimal cost items like curb and gutter and the geometry of today's intersection. So there will be some infrastructure, sort of like concrete, hard surfacing things will be pulled out, the geometry of the intersection redone. But that'll be that conversation on the low or the medium. How much hard surfacing do we want to commit to in this interim? How much do we want to spend as a group here on that interim? And yeah, so that's sort of the answer there. Certainly planning for the future, but trying to minimize the waste or how much we're putting out there today.
Okay, and thank you for those answers. And the last one I had was on the Cairndale West, when you go up the hill, the paint line there, whether it can be I'm pretty much indifferent between the options, but in terms of that particular chunk, I would really appreciate seeing maybe some just we see it on some roads around Cabo, like the new Latoria, the concrete curbs with the little bollards sticking up. Maybe some of those put along that one section, so that there can just be avoiding any cross clipping of that with vehicles.
Yeah, I think certainly something that would be a great comment to be made by the committee tonight if they see that as a benefit. There's a lot of different options in that, right? We could look to add a buffer and put the sort of sure span curbs. We could just do pickets along the paint line. A lot of different things, and then the consideration in that, and what John and I would probably speak about is snow clearing and maintenance and whatever else. So it's striking that balance. So those are the feedback we want to get from you guys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Some more questions for you. So first up, I just wondered, has Colwood done a vehicle count, like how many vehicles per day, especially on the Cairndale east side, because that would have a big impact on viewed options.
Yeah, thanks for the comment. I don't have it at the tip of my tongue, but yeah, we do have counts, and that's what informed our model, which informed the sort of detailed design. I could look it up while other people are speaking later, or take it offline.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So referring to the button, the small roundabout there, does that, if that's installed, does that will that impact the existing sidewalk on one side and the existing paved width of the road, or can we sneak it in there without any major widening there?
So through the chair, the cost is inclusive of whatever would need to be done in there. I think with the width we have and the sort of potential rework we'd be doing on Cairndale from Marianne up, we'd be able to fit it. And that would probably just change the diameter of the button. So I think we would limit any like new curb and gutter and work and all that stuff in that intersection. Just make the button a little smaller. We'd still have the geometry for it. So
Okay.
yeah, less invasive.
And is the intent to slow vehicles down with the button, or is it just to basically let the drivers know that there's some new infrastructure ahead and
Yeah, it's a traffic calming measure as well.
traffic calming?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
but yeah, I like that, and it's super cheap. Sorry, last question was for people on bikes approaching the intersection. Is there going to be a sensor embedded in the bike lane? Is there going to be a button to press? Like,
Yeah, it would as of today, our standard is a button to press. There is some work in the region around the sort of preemption and sensing ahead, 30 meters ahead or whatever else. We haven't yet implemented that. I know the CRD is working on a bit in the Goose and things like that. So we'll probably follow suit at some time, but our today's standard is cycle up, push a button.
okay.
Yep.
And then I just wanted to comment, Councillor Jansen, about the the crosswalk. I personally appreciate crossing on each corner. It's not far to walk, but if you have to wait for an extra light cycle, yeah, personally, I appreciate a crossing on every side. Then pedestrians don't have to wait for a cycle and then cross, and then wait for a cycle and then cross again. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to let you know, we've got an account on VMP at Havenwood Park. In 2024, it was 12,000 cars.
Right.
And then at Cairndale at, I think it's 3057, something like that. It's 3,000 cars in 2023. So we haven't done anything recently in those two areas, but both are significant. That aligns with Cairndale being a collector and VMP being an arterial with regards to traffic volumes.
And John, other than the counts, do you also use Google Maps for traffic densities?
Yes, yeah, those are just counts we did in-house.
Thank you. Okay, I'll recognize Don.
Thank you, Chair. My first question was actually answered about the traffic count, so thank you. Second question I have is around the different options. You have it broken out on the summary sheet quite well. And your three options is kind of an all-in low cost, do the minimal amount. The medium is concentrating more on Cairndale than VMP, in my opinion, on the way it works. And the last one is an all-in. Question I have, because you have 2.5 million, 2.4 something million allocated. You spent about 400,000, so you have about 2 million left. When you look at some of these initial, I assume these are Class D. So, okay, you got a 30% to 40% escalation on that these days. Okay, blows my question. All right. I was thinking more of better preparing Veterans Memorial to hopefully receive that funding from the province or the federal government to 5-lane it and not have to take out some interim infrastructure and do the medium or too low, depending on whatever is required for the Cairndale side. Because the Cairndale has less traffic, and at some point in the near future, from Cairndale down to Allendale is going to be needed 5-lane as Rural Bay builds out. As much as everybody says they go up with Chosen, there's more traffic everywhere. So it really comes down to, is there an option to look at revising some of the options to present back to council to say focus a little bit more heavily on VMP and do what's required to make sure that Cairndale is adjusted, lower impact to the citizens there as well, and still give you that base to be able to expand in the future.
Yeah, thanks for the comments there. That's really helpful. And I think one piece that I could help committee with in terms of order of magnitude of work installed relative to not doing the full 5 laning today. We're talking on the order of, the project is multi-millions. It's like, tens of thousands of dollars of curb and gutter and things like that being removed. If we get into the higher level with the larger sidewalk and the flat surfacing around that area, it might be a little bit more. But again, relative to the overall project, it's a really small cost.
Okay.
I think there's great commentary there relative to, again, if committee sees to see this through in this fashion, even in VMP, the high, you'll see there's a lot of off the road surface works around the multi-use path development and connecting to bus stations and things, or bus stops and things like that. Committee could say, focus on the laning at five lanes, but ease off in some of the formalization of the, curb back.
Right.
So that's another thing to do, a bit of savings there, but there's really, it's in a bit of a spot here where you can sort of, you pick and choose and tell us what you want to see there. And I think this discussion is exactly where we want to go.
Yeah,
John's
that's
got some
a rabbit hole.
Sorry, Chair, I'll just add this. I think Joshua and I are going to tag team on some of these questions, if that's okay. Current direction from council really is to focus more on mid-chosen and looking at VMP to be in a 10 to 15, 20-year horizon with regards to formal. We had brought some, as part of this original project, actually formalizing VMP all the way down to Allendale, had that discussion with council, and that's really off the books in the short term, like I say, less than 10 years. So the plan with this build really is to say, we're going to build the intersection and the costly things to be prepared for the next 10 or 15 years when we're going to look at wider. And then some of the minor things like Joshua's talked about with regards to sidewalks and curbs and a little bit of pavement and concrete. They're expendable. We think we're still getting good value on 30, 40, whatever it is, $1,000 worth of that work, because it'll last. It should be there 10 to 15 years. So we feel like sacrificing that is a good sacrifice for the betterment of the project for the next decade or so.
Well, thank you, actually, because that was actually my last question was, when is the new vision for Veterans Memorial? It's past 10 years, so that makes a different conversation around improving that intersection up to 5 lanes. Thank you.
Next person, I just wanted to clarify that something I just thought I heard. So just so we're all on the same page. When we're looking at whether we do the low, medium, or the high option, I was imagining that the designs are such that moving, say, from the medium option to the higher option would have fairly minimal redoing of anything that's already been done. That's sort of the plan.
Yeah, through the chair. What was that a comment about relative to if we did the medium, we wouldn't have to redo too much work to then in the future go to the high?
Yeah, just that these choices are building on the previous, like the low option. You wouldn't be tearing anything up to the medium option. The medium option, you're probably not tearing anything out to the high option, except you'd be removing the bollards with the signals on them and things like that.
Yeah, so if we went with low, we wouldn't have to tear anything down because it's being built at low. We went with medium, we're not building low ahead of medium, so we wouldn't have to tear anything out, we just build medium. For anything other than a high, there's some removal of existing infrastructure if we build a low or a medium today, when we need to build the ultimate tomorrow. But the expensive bits have been pre-designed and pre-located to minimize that impact in the future.
Great,
That's the
thank you.
intent, yeah.
Okay, move on to Stuart Parkinson.
Thank you, Chair. Interesting to hear from my colleagues. I started out, and I think I'm still there with Dean on the 4th leg, whether you'd have 4 intersections or 3, and I'm sure you got some smart engineers working with you that will advise on the best way to do that. Just intuitively, it seems to me if there's 2 opportunities to stop the traffic on the road, then there's going to be stopped more often than if there was just the one. And since the sidewalks on both Cairndale West and Cairndale East seem to be on the north side, my gut would tell me that one crosswalk on the north side would work. But again, it's kind of nitty gritty that we'll leave to you guys. I guess I'm a supporter of the button. I like that idea. I'm a supporter of Cairndale West, obviously, since there doesn't seem to be any choices there. But I hear what Colin says, and maybe there's some value to that. Again, I'll leave that to the experts. My real concern is the active transportation components. And I know I sound like a broken record, and you'll probably hear me again later when we talk about the transportation master plan. It's what is the city going to be prepared to fund for active transportation over the long haul? And when do we say, if, for instance, the city had a number, how would we allocate that? If the city said, well, we're only going to spend over the next 30 years, $20 million on active transportation, how would we act? How would we allocate it? What would we do? Would Cairndale be in it? Now, some of the stuff, the slide you had there said it, that Cairndale is high on the active transportation list. I guess maybe, whatever. I don't have that comfort, I guess, is what I don't have is what it, I've heard talk of electric bikes and how they flatten out all the hills, and to an extent, for sure, that's valid. So I'm cautious to spend money on basically Cairndale East to widen it for a bike lane that may not get much use. And what if it was a case of, here's a chance we can build a Cairndale East bike lane and it's going to cost X, but here we could build these 3 other bike lanes for this X. Which one would we choose? Without that knowledge, it just seems like we're sitting around, frankly, spending taxpayers' money because it's there. I mean, we sort of say, well, we're doing a road, let's add bike lanes and let's do this, without really understanding how much use they're going to get. So I think that information is lacking, frankly, for the whole city. I mean, there's stuff out there, but it's not coordinated, and it's not. It doesn't provide an allocation that's defensible, frankly. I mean, are we going to put a bike lane on every road in Colwood over the next 50 or 100 years? Well, it would seem unnecessary. Are we going to prioritize some routes and de-emphasize others so that people are coerced, in my opinion, probably towards the galloping goose in a lot of cases, but in ways where we can accommodate them better. So that's my hang up on this thing. The rest of it's, straightforward. You guys know what you're doing. I'm comfortable. So I look at it and go, gee, if I was spending my money, I would keep my powder dry. I would go with a low cost option. I guess if the grant comes through, you got to spend it in that area, or it doesn't apply. I don't exactly know the rules, but the grant came through, then maybe you would go the home run and see what you can do to, get that intersection in the Dunn pile, for instance. But I think council's direction, and probably the right one, is to let's tidy up Chosen Road first before we spend a bunch of money on other roads. So I can support that. So that's where I'm coming from. Is I think that we should go low to start with. If the grant came through, I would swing completely and say let's go high. But without that, I would say let's do the low cost option for now. Take the extra money and spend it where it provides more value to the community, and that's where I'm coming from. So.
And I think it's Roger.
I've gone to the intersection of Veterans Memorial and Cairndale and spent about 2.5 hours observing traffic flow. My original goal was going there to see line sight, because you, through urban systems, said that a roundabout wasn't desirable there because of blind sight. I'd like to know, first of all, is that a measurable thing? Do they actually survey it? Or does somebody go out there and just say, no, it's not visible, the visibility isn't good? With that in mind, how does traffic lights improve that sight line? That's my first question. My second question was, I was really surprised on Cairndale. A car was going to make a left-hand turn onto Veterans Memorial heading south. And how many actual cars backed up behind it on Cairndale? I'm not talking 10 or 15. As far as I could see around the corner, it was almost down to Marianne Crescent. They had backed up in just a short period of time. So I'm really happy to see that you're putting a left-hand turn lane in there for cars that are making a left. It makes no sense to have one car hold up 30 or 40 cars for, and sometimes this was a couple of minutes. But my question is on Cairndale East, is there going to be a left-hand turn placed on that section? I don't see it on the drawing. So we're going to have the same thing. A left-hand turning car could back up traffic going up for cars coming through and actually cars making a right-hand turn. So why isn't a left-hand turn lane considered at that intersection as well? Finally, how is traffic signals going to improve sightlines? Thank you.
I think there's a bunch there. I think I'll tackle the roundabout question and then let Joshua tackle the project questions. Your sightline issues with the roundabout is you've got to remember that with a roundabout, it's 50 meters in radius, or sorry, diameter. So what happens is you've got this tabletop, you've got these hills coming up, and this tabletop that's here for an intersection is now here for roundabout. So everything becomes steeper. So now you've got to do a lot of topographical changes with regards to alignments. So you've got to do a lot of cuts, a lot of retaining walls. In some cases, you got to do some blasting on that one side where the rock is. So sightline, yes, it's measurable with regards to speed. Depending on your speed, it changes the distance. Currently right now, VMP is at 60. So again, with signals, obviously you come down to 0. So again, your sightline distances required are different than a roundabout. Your roundabout, because your speeds never get slower than 30 or 40 going through the roundabout, that causes the distance to be longer. There was, I think, we had a report done. There was, I think, 7 criteria. And of those 7s, the signal beat out 6 of the 7 with regards to the intersection. So that question's pretty well been accepted by council, that it won't be a roundabout there. We're currently, from a staff perspective, that is our first priority in every case. But we don't want to put one in that's not going to function well. And that's what we've seen with regards to the initial analysis of that intersection. So that's the reason we've gone to the traffic signal. Joshua can answer the signal specific questions you have.
Yeah, thanks to the chair. Roger, I think you asked about left turn storage on the west part of Cairndale, correct? Simply put it, it's just through the model, the analysis of today's condition, tomorrow's condition, there just is not enough volume to warrant it.
You were asking east storage on the low cost, correct? Or you want west storage?
No, the left-hand turn lane on the east.
Yeah,
Or on
coming
the
up
west,
from
on the
Marianne.
west,
Are you
not on
asking
the
from
east.
Hyder or coming from Marianne?
No, coming from Hyder.
Okay.
So coming from Haida, just the volume is, it's a fraction of what comes up from the east side. So that backup is just not, I mean, it can happen every now and then for short periods, whatever it might be, but not significant enough to warrant the storage there.
Follow up to that,
Yeah.
that then in volume. In the 2.5 hours I spent there, now albeit it wasn't during peak hours, but it was during school hours, I saw 0 cyclists and 0 pedestrians. And yet we're going to put in bike lanes and sidewalks. So if you're using counts, why are we doing it there? I'm not saying it won't be, but at that particular time, in 3 different times, I saw absolutely no cyclists and no pedestrians. So if we're using numbers as a count for justifying things, why aren't we using it for that?
I think we are. Thank you.
And Dean.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I love the sage comments from committee member Parkinson. And in fact, it resonated with council because when we did bat this around briefly before we sent it to this committee, that was some of the discussion was, you know, where are we going with bike lanes? Do they need to be absolutely everywhere? Is it appropriate for this stretch? So there's a lot of unanswered questions, and I hate throwing good money after bad. And quite frankly, you know, it reminded me, I made a note here about our discussion over the years on orphan sidewalks. And it just resonated with me that this small stretch of bike lane may be a bit of an orphan bike lane until it gets connected, you know, at some point in the future. I'm ready with a motion, Madam Chair, when you're ready. I see there's a.
I think there's a bit more discussion,
You bet.
but for sure, I will come back to you. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I just had one more question. If you could refresh my memory about where the 30 km/h zone starts on Cairndale East. I recall it's at the top of the hill, there's a 30K, but would that become 30 as soon as you exit VMP or?
I have to go look at it. I thought it was the whole section. Yeah. Okay.
Right when you pass St. Troy is the first 37 as you're going down.
Yeah.
I live there.
Yeah, I can remember that sign, but
That's it.
would there be 30 km/h signs added like in that new section as part of the upgrade?
Certainly, if that was council direction, we could do that for sure as part of the project. They have the ability to change those speeds, for sure. And I think that's a great follow-up with regards to the TMP. Those are the kinds of discussions in the TMP we're going to talk about. Like, does council want to see a universal 30 km/h, say on local streets, on some collector streets in some areas? I mean, that's a conversation to have in the TMP, but certainly for now, when you're coming off of EMP, it's not 30 currently today.
Mhm. Thank you. It just affects the way I think about the street, you know, the speed and obviously the car count per day. It makes a big impact on comfort and safety. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I just had a couple questions myself. One was, is the multi-use pathway that's proposed on Veterans Memorial Parkway, does it have impacts on the intersection?
Certainly, the design of the intersection is accommodated for the multi-use path. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And with regards to, I heard a little bit mentioned with regard to street parking. As this is a collector road, should there be parking on it?
I would suggest that's up to council for direction, but our collector in our SDS bylaw does not contemplate parking on collectors, and we have some verbiage to suggest limitation of parking on collectors is desired.
Perfect. Yeah, that was just my recollection. So I just wanted to make sure I was up to date on that. And my last point was regarding there is a bus stop on the south side of Cairndale on let me get it right, the east side of VMP. And I've had to work on that very hard. But that stop is right adjacent to some very steep driveways. And I did have a little chat today about how that would look under the different options. And if we chose the lowest cost option, would that allow for the relocation sufficient to get the bus out of the path of cars turning off VMP to go east on Cairndale?
Yeah, through the chair, I think any way we go, that needs to be moved, and it will be in the path of the vehicles. It's just giving ourselves enough length for those vehicles to store up, wait for the bus and continue. So the intent now, we need to confirm with BC Transit, is to move that bus stop further east. So it would be, you know, further down the block or even the beginning of the next block. So we'd work with BC Transit and see where we best locate that to allow for the traffic movements and the formalization of Cairndale.
Great. Thank you. Okay, I'm ready for any motion that wishes to be made.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm gonna throw this out there and we'll see where it lands, but I do find myself swayed by former Councillor Parkinson and some of the discussion from council, and I have concerns about future works. I do believe, you know, the focus for the future councils will be the widening of VMP and the multi-use pathway, and I have concerns if we're going to spend a bunch of money now that, you know, the designs might change in this 10 or 15 years, and I'd hate to leave a bit of a mess for a future council. I'm going to propose the less expensive option, but inclusive of the that
Button.
freestanding button was the word I was looking for. Thank you, Your Worship. So that'd be my motion, which I think was the first recommendation. Is that or the first option? The low cost, the budget. And then including the that remote button. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Questions, comments? No. Nope, no secondary at committee. And just to, I guess, does that leave any concerns with installing the lighted intersection?
Through the chair, no, that gives clear direction relative to the installation and signalization of BMP. Yeah, we're good.
Thank you. I will recognize Colin. Oh, trying to recognize Colin.
Okay, thank you. Feels a bit of an anarchy-ness to be putting this out here, but I would be open to this newer motion if, because my understanding is even with the low cost option for like Cairndale West, it will still include the bike lane going up the hill on the north side. I believe that is correct. Then I would be open to this motion if there can be those concrete protectors on that section to make sure no one, you know, drifts over when they're going up the hill on that curve.
So I think what you need to do is propose an amendment,
Okay, so
and the amendment would be to add the concrete.
thank you. I propose an amendment to the suggested option 2. I believe that's where we're at, but lost in space here, to include the like concrete addition on the north side of Cairndale West going up the hill, so that it can protect any bicyclists or, you know, cyclists, etc., from being, you know, hit from a vehicle going over the curve on that section. It's a bit long worded, but to include, you know, concrete curbs for that, you know, bike lane going up the Cairndale West side. Does anyone, you know, comments, feedback, discussion on that?
I just, you might suggest that you make it a little more open-ended onto just that there be some protection for cyclists on the north side.
Sure.
Yeah.
Give some flexibility, yeah, for some protection.
Okay, let's see. Recognize Stuart.
Thank you, Chair. If I could perhaps pick the brains of the engineering staff over there. This sounds to me like it's going to reduce the width of the bike path or the travel lanes. Do we have a sense? Is there room? I mean, I'm thinking of these concrete things like we see on Painter, and it's probably a total of a meter with the concrete things, a little buffer on either side.
Yeah, through the chair, they vary between 0.75 and 0.9 for the buffer, the painted buffer, and then the concrete goes in between that. If I may, John and I were just discussing here, and it might perhaps make more sense to actually downgrade this low to a very low on the Haida section and potentially remove the bike lane, move the center back over, and basically have existing condition of Sharrow up, Sharrow down, and still keep the suggested pedestrian and connection through the sidewalk. Then you'd have continuity through the intersection. That might be something that this committee suggests. Like bike travel up this road, I think we've commented on counts, like it is going to be very low right now and continue to be low for many years. Maybe it's better to just let that you know, social activity happen and the nature of things work on that hill.
So scrap the whole bike lane idea on Cairndale West.
Just an option.
I think from an operational standpoint, creating more storage for the infrequent snowfall we may have creating the extra width for those bikes to get up that hill by putting that center line back where it should normally be. There's plenty of width there. That lane width's going to be 4.8, 4.5 meters. So there'll be plenty of room for bikes. And to earlier discussions today, I mean, if we're talking about bikes going up to Haida, I mean, I'd be pretty confident saying it'd be 1 or 2 a day. It's not going to be big, and for the impact operationally and the cost with regards to putting that concrete in, you're definitely not going to get your value for that. But the comments are valid. It's just I don't think you're going to get a real bang for your buck with regards to doing that. So when Josh and I were discussing it, we thought better even so just go back to just putting that line in there and just do the pedestrian works for that leg. So that kind of clicked the light bulb for us.
Defend yourself.
So we did have an amendment moved. Do you wish to withdraw your amendment or just wondering? I'm happy to entertain to see if there's any support for your amendment.
Just like not like defending, but just some commentary. Feedback.
Sure.
Thank you for the feedback there. I'm fine if there is no bike lane on that portion due to just like the very low amount of traffic going there. It's just I've seen this out in the sticks and Machosen and some other areas when they do put the shoulder curb there. Vehicles tend to have this subconscious thinking that that's their lane, this is my lane. I don't need to be too worried about that other lane, and that does bring the added risk compared to just having a cyclist sharing the road on a very low traffic place there compared to oh, the line's there, I don't need to worry about that, not even noticing the back of my vehicle goes over there. It's just adding that risk where that line gives people the belief that they're fine in their lane when they might not still be in that lane. So I'm fine without a bike lane on that portion due to the low traffic. But if we are going to be putting a bike lane there, I do think there needs to be concrete curbs. That's where my thinking is. I mean, I'd be fine if we don't have bike lane there. So I'd like to hear some feedback from committee members here. Thank you.
Roger.
Josh, just how flexible are you with the cement barriers? Because I measured some on Signage, they were 0.3, and then they placed them halfway over on each of the fog lines. So the total width for the separation really was 0.4. And you were saying 0.7. So you could pick up another 0.3 of a meter just by bringing those lines in and placing the cement barrier half and half. So the white line is still, the fog line is still showing, albeit the barrier is covering half of it. But where there's breaks, you see the full width again. Are you flexible in that?
I mean, I'm personally not all that flexible, but in this line of work, yeah, like of course, so very flexible. I think there's a spectrum, right? Our typical design would see us paint the lines, the fog lines wider, have the concrete in the middle. You can see the full fog line. There's a larger barrier. There's so many reasons for that, but I won't get into it. Where we have constraints, we make concessions, and that would be one of them. So that area in Signage, they probably had limited right of way, limited space. They shrunk it up. We based our pilot program on Painter based on Signage's work. So I would think that most of their buffered and protected buffered bike lanes would be wider than what you witnessed there, but I could be wrong. But that would just be our first pass. This is what we do. Yeah. So I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I think we do the same thing. We're having these conversations now. Our typical is a 2.2 meter sidewalk. Well, could we do 1.8? Bike lanes 1.8. Could we do 1.65? We have those conversations. We work with what's out there on the site. We don't want to relocate that hydro pole. We want to still get a bike lane. Okay, let's narrow it up a bit. What's the big deal? Of course we're flexible. Yeah.
I would just add for staff, a lot of our guiding documents, and I guess I'm speaking to the committee as a whole, just for future meetings when we talk about construction and all of that. Council puts into place a lot of documents to give staff authority and direction with developers so that we can ask for the fair share for the community with regards to a wide sidewalk, a wide bike lane, a protected bike lane when it's on an arterial. And that's easy to do when we're building in Greenfield where there's nothing there yet. There's no houses and so on. We can do it. So if we didn't have developers, then we would need all the guiding documents because we're building on our own roads under our own direction. We can come to council and get the direction. So when you're looking at these cross sections and you're looking at the widths of bike lanes and widths of sidewalk, it's about if nothing's in the way and money were no object, this is what we're building. But when we start looking at utility poles, and then when we get to design and we start looking at existing infrastructure like gas lines and CRD water mains, and when we got to put in formalized storm works, that'll change all of those tenants again. And we might say, you know what, we can save 150,000 on storm sewer work if we narrow up a bike lane by 0.2 and narrow up a sidewalk by 0.1. Of course, we're going to come to council and say, we know this is what we'd like to do, but we think we can save ourselves a bunch of money for our own project when we do this. So even on places like Machosen, when we put forward lane widths and bicycle lane widths and all of that, we'll probably end up at the design stage coming back and saying, hey, there's a utility pole in the road. Do you mind if we narrow this up? Something else is going on. Do you mind if we widen this? And we'll take that into consideration. So ultimately, when it comes to working within a right of way that already exists, we're extremely flexible with regards to that, always taking in mind form, function, and cost.
Okay, I'm going to bring us back to the motion here. I believe that the inclusion of the concrete protective measures on the north side of Cairndale Road is not being put forward. Am I correct?
It's if we still want to have the bike lane on the west section.
Okay.
To have that, but if we don't want to have bike lane there, then we don't need to have it. Is there any anyone else in the community think we should not have a bike lane in that section due to traffic and etc.
Yeah. And Roger's ahead of you. But, sorry, Davis was ahead of you, but I can recognize. Just a minute. I'm going to put Dean on there just because.
Just quickly, we're getting bogged down here. The proposition is the lesser expensive option, which does not include a bike lane. It's a Sharrow road. So I think it's superfluous unless he wants to put forward the amendment. If he does, let's vote on it and let's keep things moving. Thank you.
Thanks. And I'm going back to David.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy with Councillor Jansen's motion, and I think that John and Josh said that it's going to be like 4.5 or 4.7 meter wide lanes on the Cairndale West and super low traffic numbers. So I'm happy for it to be a shower, and the money goes into the sidewalk extension, and that's fine with me.
Excellent. Thank you. Oh, we have Colin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was under the impression that there was still be bike lanes with the low cost, but hearing that it sounds like it's not, then I'm fine striking my amendment.
Okay. So yeah, I'm going to call the question. I just wanted confirmation from staff first, please, that we're talking about a shared laneway, not a bike lane.
So currently our low option does show a bike lane. I think we would seek, and we can do this with or without it. It doesn't matter, but I think some verbiage to say removal of the bike lane on that west portion would be helpful.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I've altered that recommendation on for a committee's review.
So based on our consensus around the table here, we've added excluding on-street bike lanes on Cairndale westbound. And with that, I'm going to call the question. Is anyone opposed? I see no one opposed. That is carried. Okay, we're going to move on because we do have quite a few items to get through here. And we're going to start with 5.2, the traffic calming measures and access restrictions on Hatley Drive.
Thank you, Chair. This is concerning Hatley Road. It's a well-known street in off of Machosen that's been cut through for years for traffic. I have to say, I don't think I've spent more time on one individual street in my 33 years in my career. That being said, we now have here at the committee a decision with regards to what you'd like to do with signage and or any more enhancements for the street. I don't have a presentation happy to answer any questions you might have or verify any kind of data. We have traffic counts. We did have a RCMP officer. RCMP have got a new traffic in their division. He decided to go out and have a not for enforcement, just for observation. What he saw in 20 minutes during peak time was 14 right-hand turns, which would be in violation to the sign. And he also saw 10 left-hand turns, which is an allowable movement. He's not aware of the overall history of the project. He just felt that for what he saw that day, he was wondering why we'd even want to waste their resources on enforcement there. It is high traffic. It's 1200 for a local street. We have a similar problem on Cecil Bog, which is close to 1,000 cars. What we have done in Hatley really well is reduce the speeds. Speeds are down significantly. Our average speed for 85% percentile, which is meaning that 85 out of 100 cars travel at 31 kilometers. The average of all cars is 27. Streetlight Cecil Blog, its speeds are 49 at 85% and 42 at an average speed. So it's significantly fast. We haven't put any money into it. Cecil Blog is at 10 out of 62 on our priority matrix with regards to solutions. And Hatley Road, when you put it under the matrix, it's at 51 of 62. So we put a lot of time and effort into it. We've done everything I think that we can. But certainly we've just put up, I would call the low cost option, which is don't do anything else, but by all means, open to the committee's suggestions. There's a plethora of options there. Happy to answer any questions with regards to all of those.
Okay, I'll open it up to the committee. Stuart.
Sorry to put you on a spot like this, John, but I guess I don't understand what the concerns are. The people are still shortcutting through there, or 14 an hour, whatever it was. Is that the concern? We heard about perhaps a sidewalk or a crosswalk would be helpful at the stop sign. And I'm confused about the objections to residents only signs. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't understand the problem.
So we put the I think originally we put up the no left turn, and then we put it for hours, and it is a commuter traffic. So or the no right turn is for commuter traffic. That 7:30 to 9, just to try to get most of those people to go down the Chosen. We were getting a lot of people turning down and calling themselves local. We don't have a bylaw that defines local traffic. So when the police officers were pulling people over, they were saying, well, I live in Royal Bay. And it's like, well, the intent was that people live on Hatley or Passage. They could turn in there during those hours. And then when we put up local traffic only, the local traffic residents, the people that lived on Hatley and Passage, what they're asking for now is illuminated lights around it so they don't have to look at their watch to see what time it is. Because a couple of them gotten tickets because even though they lived on the street and lived in the area, when we removed local traffic only, they got a ticket for that. We've also got complaints from other residents that said, hey, it's a public street. Why are you forcing me to go down to a school zone? Why are you forcing me to go down to a playground zone? There's all kinds of traffic issues at that school during that time. There's kids everywhere. I just feel better about driving down Hatley and going around it instead. So we got quite a few emails from non-Hatley residents complaining about that. So that's when we decided, we could perhaps entertain the sign to help them a little further. So we had the local traffic up. It's now down again. And even ironically with the RCMP, we've had one officer that we've talked to say, oh, put up a local traffic sign, it would help me. We've had another officer that says, don't put the local traffic sign up because you don't have a bylaw that I can enforce. So that's back to the point about how we'll have enforcement issues if we continue trying to go down there. And I can tell you the RCMP do feel like they have better places to go than try to enforce this.
Okay, well, I sympathize with your challenges, but frankly, what's been done there probably makes people on Milburn a lot happier than they used to be about the people cutting through their neighborhoods. So maybe you just can't win them all, John. And, I think it's working great. I'm happy with what's there.
All right, and it just will remind people that there was a speaker here tonight who was speaking to the safety of people not stopping at the stop sign. And it's not on Machosen Road, that corner, it's on the next corner at Hatley and Outrigger Loop, yeah, or Passage, there we go. So just a consideration, there's safety concerns everywhere.
Yeah, we can certainly follow up with her and then find out exactly where she'd like her sidewalks and then put that into the matrix and see if that changes. Because our matrix right now is to deal with speed and volume on the street itself. This is the first I've heard about the concern about a sidewalk. So certainly we'll follow up with her and find out what it is, put it into the matrix and see where it lands.
Thank you. Colin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm of the belief that this should be open as a cut through. It's like, I understand the concerns with local residents there in general, but when I was, working in the summer, until the signs went up, I would use it as a cut through and it would take me off of the Souk Highway because I would go to the parking ride and then take the bus into town. And it saves on average between 12 and 16 minutes during the time I'd go in the summer until the sign went up and then I would just stop using it. Partly because my dad got a ticket there, but so it kind of scared us out of that. But anyways, I felt much safer doing that because I understand the concerns that, local community just want to keep their street, maybe a cul-de-sac or something, but like the amount of cars that would be in front of me and behind me during those rush hour periods, those are traffic that is not going through school zones and being a risk to the corner there. And like I could go up Lagoon, or when I was starting to go to Lagoon, it would take a very long time because the intersection school zone is a complete chaos zone there compared to before when a lot of those vehicles were able to stream off through the cut zone, which arguably I think massively improved safety and also reduced congestion. So I'm of the belief that it should be a cut through compared to, limiting people out of that because I think it just causes more problems than benefits is my belief.
Thank you. Dean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I made comments at council that I'm sick of talking about this stretch of roadway, quite frankly. And if one of the options was to put a permanent barrier up there and close it, I would vote for that so that we never speak about it again. And I don't want to belittle the complaints that are before us, but quite frankly, we can't keep throwing money at this one small stretch of roadway based on, a couple of emails, quite frankly. If people can't read the sign and can adhere to the traffic control device that's placed there suitably by a competent authority that's intended to increase safety and manage traffic as we choose, then they deserve a ticket. And I would be, if you came to me and said we should spend $10,000 on RCMP overtime for someone to sit there and hand out more tickets, I would be in favor of that. I'm done with this discussion. I'm done with spending any more money there. I would way rather see the $5,000 go to a raised crosswalk and maybe some lighting or whatever at that particular crosswalk of interest. My vote is to do absolutely nothing other than what's been done up to this point in time. Now, having said all that, that's a bit of a rant, but I did have a question. What is the current status of that sign? How does it read? What's there right now? Is it just inhibiting turns for various hours?
Yeah, right now it's no left turn from 7 till 9. Local
Right
or
turn,
not.
perhaps.
We removed the local only tabs. So if nobody can turn right on that street.
That sounds perfect. And I'm sorry if you can't read that sign, and yes, stuff does change. So you have to be aware and look and read and see and have your head up out of your lap or your phone or whatever the heck. And for 2 hours, that's not much of an inconvenience, in my opinion. And I will vote for not one more red cent to be spent in this corridor or any more of my time.
Okay, we gotcha.
Thank you.
Moving on. Angus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I live down on Ocean Boulevard, and for the life of me, I cannot understand why that road is open. I agree with Dean. It should not be open. It's causing a huge amount of traffic coming down the hill for no reason, and it should be closed. And if not, there should be 6 speed bumps together. and another 6 speed bumps together, just to annoy people enough to say they don't want to go through that road. All it is doing is bringing people down down to Ocean Boulevard. And if you have driven on the Ocean Boulevard since the sun came out, it's scary. It's absolutely scary. This should be a park down there. It's not a cut through. I know it might improve your traffic time to get into Victoria, but we have to start looking at some changes. We can't have 150 cars every hour coming down Lagoon Road to get onto Ocean Boulevard to get to Victoria faster. It's just not a solution. I'm really hoping that the bridge gives out really soon. I would even help it with myself if I could, but it's just crazy. This is nuts to have that road open, and I think I agree. You should just close it, and the people there will have to go down and around. But the only solution would be, I'd say, 6 to 10 more speed bumps. So that's my feeling.
Thank you. Roger?
Well, I live in the area and I talk to residents all the time. And there's a couple of residents that, although Colin may not realize that during rush hour, they can't even get out of their driveway to go to work. And they've ended up having to back into the driveway, and they get people honking them because they're coming home when everybody else is coming home, and they're blocking traffic so they can back into the driveway. So the following morning they can pull out front ways. So it's a lot more. John, you must be talking to a real new policeman, because one day they issued 40 tickets in one morning. So there's lots of tickets being issued, and that is really impacting. And I realize the police have better things to do to sit in the neighborhood area issuing tickets. But the signs, the no right-hand turn off Machosen and the no left-hand turn, but mainly the one on Machosen, it's in amongst 3 other signs. So it is hard to see. You're looking at a slow zone, a school zone, pedestrian crosswalk, and then you've got no right-hand turn. So I would recommend that we try those flashing lights, because the police tell me, and I've spoken to a lot of them while they're working there, the integrated traffic unit, and they say, well, a lot of people are using the argument they didn't see the signs because there's just so many of them right there. And the argument is, well, we're forcing people down the school zone. Come on, they're going down to Ocean Boulevard, so if they can't turn there, they're going to turn on Lagoon. So they're not entering that real, what I call the real school zone, which is from Lagoon to Sangster. The other just picks up the playground and the tennis courts. So I think the flashing lights would help, and then residents themselves would have no excuses, because people have been doing that for 15 or 20 years. It's just become everyday occurrence, a habit. And they come and they go, oh no, it's a 2:30 or it's 4:30 and I've got nailed. So I think just putting the lights up would really help everybody. And then I think nobody would have an excuse.
Thanks, Roger. Quick question for staff. What's the cost comparison between putting up a barrier and closing the road and putting the flashing lights on?
Where are you closing the road? Are you closing it at Machosen?
Yes,
So you cannot make a right turn off Machosen onto Hatley at all.
correct.
So the resident, somebody who lives on, what's the T intersection? Grattan. Thank you. Somebody who lives on Grattan would have to go down to Lagoon, then turn right onto Melbourne, and then turn right onto Hatley. I think the cost would be. How many people live on Grattan? If I was going to close that road, and my nervousness in saying this is, I would close it just the other side of Grattan, so that Grattan could still access off Machosen, Passageway could still access off Machosen. And then if you wanted to do the cut through, you'd have to go down Grattan, down Passageway, back up Hatley. So you might not save any time. We'd probably end up putting speed humps on. So my long-winded answer is, it'd be cheaper to put up the barriers. I could put up 2 concrete no posts and people couldn't drive down it, and it'd be done. And we'd have to put up some signage and so on. So I think it'd be cheaper. It might be the same, but it certainly would solve a lot of problems. But I wish we would have done that before we put the speed humps in.
Thank you. Roger.
One point through the chair is we have the Grattan Lookout. And if you blocked off Grattan, you're going to have to divert all that traffic every day for people to go down Lagoon, turn on Milburn, come up Hatley, come up Passage, turn on Perimeter, turn on Grattan. It would be impossible. And I think that is item number 9 in Beachlands projects, is a major overview of their total project at the Grattan Lookout. So I wouldn't recommend that at all. It would be, and also for emergency vehicles, it's going to add a lot more time for them to get to any particular house on Grattan or Hatley or Passage or Perimeter. So I don't think that's a recommended idea. And one final thing. And I suggested it and I thought it was going to happen. Then somebody appeared and said, no, it's going to make the turn. But I notice that on a lot of intersections now, they're doing the flares. Why couldn't we put some posts up along Machosen to make the turn harder onto Hatley? Because I think part of the problem there is cars are coming along at 50. They don't even slow down to make that turn because it's such a sweeping turn. And so they're hitting that first speed bump. I was actually going to bring in a disc brake, that one speed bump dislodged from a car, so they're working. But I would recommend a couple of pickards along there so it would slow that turn down a bit. It would be no cost, basically. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm looking. Oh, I see Stuart.
Thank you. I would like to move that council direct staff to maintain the current restrictions on Hatley Drive as they exist for a period of 18 months.
Thank you. Any further comments on this issue? You did, but is it on this particular issue? I think I would allow you to speak since you've been graciously sitting in the audience. Can you just push the button and give us your name?
Oh, this one. All right. I'm Mark McCoy. I live in Royal Bay. I work from home. I don't actually commute through this area, but it does. I agree with Colin that it should be a through line. If the problem is speed down that thing, then the RCMP should be enforcing speed. If the problem is people running, like taking a turn, then, without stopping at the stop sign, then the RCMP should be enforcing the stop sign. It shouldn't be this sort of arbitrary time zone that happens to be during drop off that you can't go that direction. The fact that it's this little window of time that's during drop off, we're directing additional traffic past a school, past an intersection that's by a school. It doesn't make any sense to me. So the concerns, it makes sense that residents in that area, they don't like all the extra traffic, but I'm sure residents on the corner by the school don't like all the extra traffic. During drop off, there's going to be more traffic. So if the issue is speed, by all means, bring the speed limit down, put 50 speed bumps, doesn't matter. But yeah, enforce the actual problem, not the fact that it's turning, because shared volume around during drop-off period is a problem for the whole neighborhood. So respectfully, those are my thoughts. Yeah,
great, thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor and you have.
Just clarification on the motion. Council, I believe, approved putting blinking lights around the no left and no right hand turn at a previous council meeting. So does this motion include those or does it exclude them?
Well, I would could, maybe the mover would like to speak to it, but I think it's fairly evident that as they exist, but we also need for a period of 18 months as part of the motion. And I'll let Stuart defend his motion.
Yeah, I would say if there's been action to do something there, that it comes under current restrictions. So if they've decided to put flashing lights up already, I'm with that. I just think 18 months will give people time to get used to it or not. And so much of this is it's new, people are concerned. Give them some time and it may settle down or it may not.
Maybe, yeah, go ahead, John.
Just point of clarification, I am not aware of a direction from council to put up those signs with the flashing LEDs. There's been discussion about it, hasn't been budgeted, hasn't been funded, and I certainly haven't got a specific direction from council that I'm aware of.
I understand that it was deferred to this committee, recommended by the council and deferred to this committee. So I could support this motion if it included the flashing lights for at least a trial period. And if they don't work, you could move those to a flashing crosswalk. I mean, they're interchangeable, so it should be able to work.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick point. I won't support this if this means we're spending money on flashing signs. Another one of my concerns is that sounds fantastic. And then 2 blocks down the road, they want flashing signs. And the next street, they want flashing signs. It's going to be a never ending story. I won't support that, but I don't believe, I mean, that recommendation is basically no more expenditures. And if we haven't approved signs, can we just get absolute clarity on what it is we're voting for? Thank you.
John.
Option 4 is what Roger's suggesting. Option 4 is install flashing LED signage to improve compliance and visibility of restrictions. That's option 4.
Okay, thank you. We did approve, this may be the confusion point. There was flashing lights on the stop sign at Lagoon. So that might be part of what is in people's minds. The motion on the table is to keep it as it is, which is time restricted right turn and time restricted left turn, correct?
Correct. PM for the left off of Melbourne, AM for the right off of Chosen, with applying to everybody because there is no local only tabs on that.
Right. So that, and the reason for that was problematic in terms of identifying for police enforcement who was local and who was not. So we're sticking with the time frame because it's enforceable. That's what this motion is reflecting, and that we leave it as it is for 18 months and see how it goes. Anyone opposed to this motion? Oh, sorry, you had more to say, Stuart.
Well, sorry, I was starting to feel a little guilty about that lady who came here and suggested that a crosswalk would solve a lot of the problems. And I think the staff was going to look at that. And perhaps if they felt it had merit, they could bring it back as an exception to this. I hope
Different part of the intersection. Her issue is further in, that not right on the chosen road, from what I understand.
No, it's at Hatley Passage, that cross section. So it's on Hatley Road. So I would hope that they would feel comfortable if they felt there was value to it, to bring it back, and rather than add another couple of paragraphs onto this motion to allow for that potential.
John.
Thank you, Chair. As I said earlier, we'll put it into the matrix, and part of this committee's conversation that we'll have at a future date, we'll bring back the list of matrix projects because we've got the 100,000 that we discussed last year that we've saved some. We're going to bring forward for project consideration. So it'll end up being in that project list, and if that rises to the top, or you decide it's something that's important to the committee, then it would be done under that funded item.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So anyone opposed to the motion? 2 opposed. That is carried. Thank you. We will move on to our next item, which is the another fun topic, the Transportation Master Plan update.
Thank you, Chair. Couple comments. I'm going to start off with just, I guess, a general statement to the committee, a bit of an apology relative to the TMP and the version that this TMP is, or that this committee has received of our TMP. So I think we're into phase 2 engagement on the TMP. We had a draft out there based on a lot of feedback we got through phase 1 and now early stages of phase 2. We've done some pretty significant edits and we're continuing to do some edits. Most of it isn't content based relative to change of direction. It's more about removing content, narrowing it down, and shifting sections and restructuring of the document. So I guess all I would say is if we were able to give you this draft that we have today or one that we might have tomorrow, it might have been an easier read. So content wise, I still think we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of it. I want to talk about the network maps. I want to talk about, so I'll get into my presentation, but I just wanted to start by recognizing that this is a work in progress. It's a draft document and we have a more updated draft document that might have been more palatable. So apologies in advance. So we'll go through my presentation here. So TMP, another thing to highlight from our Cairndale conversation, I think there's a lot of synergy from that conversation. You can hear me asking a lot of questions about bike lanes and about the network and should we this, should we that. So gear up for similar topic conversation here. Purpose for tonight, like I said, sharing on the TMP, status of the TMP. We want to go through the highlights, key direction, major network elements, seeking committee endorsement. So continuing into phase 2, you know, if this committee's like, nope, we don't want to go any further in phase 2, this is like completely the wrong direction. We tell council to stop, change everything, blah, 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 that's fine. But the intent from our perspective is we're on the right path and we're getting feedback from you guys so we can continue into phase 2, tighten up the draft, get it in front of council and get this TMP adopted and something we can work with at a staff level and continue on. Why update the 2015 TMP? Well, I think it's in the title. It was from 2015 and we're now in 2026. Since then, we've seen significant population growth leading to traffic congestion. We have an updated OCP, although it's still from 2018. It is updated relative to the one before. Climate change plan or climate action plan from 2024. There's elements that touch in the TMP there. Changing travel patterns. Typically, you know, we're seeing massive infill development. We're seeing massive greenfield development. Incorporating the ATMP, the draft document that we had before, we're getting away with an individual ATMP and a TMP and combining them into one. So getting that content in there, integrated multimodal network, and strategic planning alignment. TMP process, so background, technical analysis, and the development of our traffic model are the foundational components of this TMP and the work we've been doing. Phase 1 engagement was the summer of 2025, not 2015, 2025. Draft plan has been developed and we're into phase 2 engagement. We're going through this month and into June. What we heard from phase 1, we heard traffic congestion. That's a massive thing we hear from the public. I think we talked about it relative to the project we were just talking about earlier through John and Hatley. Safety concerns. Again, we had a woman here today with context there relative to safety concerns. Desire for better transit frequency and lack of safe cycling infrastructure. Vision and goal. So vision statement, moving around Colwood is safe, efficient, connected, and sustainable. Residents and visitors have realistic and reliable transportation choices and can travel safely and comfortably to their destinations using their mode of choice. Couple sort of icons in here: accessible, inclusive, safe, secure, complete, connected, active, healthy, green, sustainable, efficient, reliable. These are the pieces I'm really hoping to dive deeper into tonight, and I'm hoping that, and not assuming, but maybe the committee spent some time looking at these maps. So hard to see in here, but this is the future road network and complete streets. And we can always go back to these after the presentation and speak to them one by one. Pedestrian network. So when we're talking about, Cairndale, should a sidewalk be there? I would look at this map. Okay, well, it's part of our network. We want to make sure we have a certain level of connectivity for pedestrians. That makes sense for justifying that project. Cycling network, same conversation, applying to cyclists. Transit network, same conversation, but working with BC Transit. We don't own and operate BC Transit, but we can lobby, we can speak with them, we work with them, we collaborate with them. We have the detailed information for our community, where we're growing and the rest, and we inform BC Transit and request better service. We tell them where we want better service. Priority infrastructure actions, so quarter upgrades over the next 10 years, intersection improvements, active transportation connections, and future studies. Supporting actions, Vision Zero action plan opportunities. So these aren't things we've committed to. These are opportunities we may be able to look to in the future. An early step of Vision Zero, just for context, was our ICBC crash data analysis that we had done in 2025. Might have been late 24 actually, but that's influenced this TMP and influenced a lot of the work we've done moving forward. Development contributions, DCC updates. So this TMP being redone will help us redo our road DCC. Monitoring and reporting, partnerships with the CRD, MOTI, and BC Transit. Next steps for us, we're inside of April, heading into the May to June, and it's phase 2 engagement for us. So we're trying to speak to as many people as we can, getting as many people as we can to read the document, read the supporting documentation, and give us their 2 cents. We want to hear from the community. Our intent is to gather all of that through phase 2 and bring a summary to council in July. Staff recommendation tonight. I think we're hopefully going to change this altogether, but this is how it reads. That the Transportation Infrastructure Committee recommend to council that council receive the transportation plan, TMP, for adoption, and that council endorse the TMP as presented and direct staff to proceed with implementation through future capital planning, policy development, and ongoing transportation initiatives. So I think how maybe this could read, and we can adjust it, whatever else, all comments included, it's more about continuing into phase 2 engagement. Getting through there, talking about the meat and potatoes of our plan. Have we missed anything? Are we good with the tenets of it? And then it's more about how we package it. I think that would be more aligned with staff's intent tonight. We want to get the blessing of this committee and maybe the feelings of this committee and the changes that maybe you want to see or don't want to see. But it's, and maybe I'm wrong in it, you've read the draft and you love it, and that's cool too. But I did share at the beginning, we've already made substantive changes to the document. We've shortened it. What we heard through feedback from council and others is there was a phrase that there's a lot of fluff in there, and there was. It's a lot of content. There's a lot of words. So we've narrowed it down and restructured it. And the intent tonight, as I said, is to move into phase 2 engagement. But it's less about the fluffy content that we want to talk about. We want to talk about the not so fluffy, the concrete pieces of, should this infrastructure be here? Should this project be done in this order? Those are the things we want to talk about tonight.
So just to clarify, so we're not actually going to try to adopt or recommend the adoption of the master plan fait accompli. We're trying to move it forward for more public engagement, correct?
Correct.
Great, thank you.
So this touch point with committee is a point in phase 2 engagement.
Okay, John.
Thank you, Chair. So really, I mean, Joshua's hit the nail on the head with regards to what you've read that we gave you is not. I mean, we haven't really changed the information that's in there. We've pushed a bunch to appendix. We've taken commuter type stuff and pushed it more towards the front. We've tried to make it a document that you can read in half an hour instead of 2 hours. And then if you're really interested and want to spend 3 hours, you can go to all the appendixes. What we really need is there's been a lot of, I mean, council is really trying to figure out where to go. So Sandra Russell's here with us tonight. She's helped us tremendously with regards to the survey. So we'd love to see some comments on the survey. Hierarchy of modes. Our current mode hierarchy is cycling, transit, peds, commuters are last. So again, council struggling with that. They'd love to get feedback from the committee about what should that mode hierarchy be? Should it be commuters, goods movements, then cyclists, then transit? What would you see as the modes? And Joshua can bring up a picture of that to show you the modes. We'd like that. And then again, we've had discussion tonight about bike lanes and which lanes would connect and which ones shouldn't. So love to have a look at the network maps and get some feedback on whether you think there's some bike connections in there that should or shouldn't be there, pedestrian connections that shouldn't be, transit, whether you agree with the way we've set up the transit map in there. That would be a great piece of information for council to have. So obviously, we're going to go up to public engagement, which will also be influential. But I think from the committee perspective, anything you can give council with regards to your thoughts on some of those topics would be really helpful, as opposed to saying, we love the TMP, just adopt it, which is kind of what we've said here. So we can maybe go away from that and talk about, sorry, Heather, 5 or 6 motions that you might like to put in there with regards to comments on some of those various topics I mentioned.
So just to that end, I'm going to ask that you bring up one of the slides with any map that's in your presentation, whether it's the cycling network or any of them, but just so that members of the committee could speak to the map. And then I will go to Roger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The improvements made to the master transportation plan, I must admit, I really like. But there is a ton of material in there. And for me to sit back and say, yeah, I'm going to endorse adoption to move to council for acceptance, I think, truthfully, I would feel a lot better if we went through it. Not line by line, but basic category by category. So we would have a better understanding of what it's all about, because I've spent a lot of time reading it and I have lots of questions. And for me to sit back and say, yeah, I'm comfortable recommending to council to adopt this, even in the preliminary stage, I think is a step too far. And that's my feeling. Thank you.
Okay. Colin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have some clarification questions before I can get to a laundry list of some things. With this, like, are you wanting like specific motions for us to tell you like some of our our 2 cents on pieces of this, or like if that's really what you want, is there an opportunity where maybe like I'm on summer break now, maybe I just sit down with you guys and to save committee time and just give a bunch of my particular comments, or does it need to be a motion here for that to go anywhere?
I could probably help a little bit with that. I think that it does need to be a motion here because this whole committee carries a weight based on that we're all assembled here to talk about these things together. And we're trying to build a consensus to put
Okay.
forward to council.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Oh, yes.
If I may, Colin, and through the chair, that laundry list of like your personal opinions, I think is a great forum to come to one of our other touch points through phase 2, which we'll publish through with Sandra. There'll be many opportunities that you can come to a public stakeholder engagement. We'll be at, I don't know, probably Eats and Beats or all sorts of, maybe that's too late. We'll be music at the park somewhere. We'll be at different places where you can come and give us that. And that can just be taken as an individual resident's comments. But as Councillor Day and the chair mentioned, it's definitely consensus from this committee tonight is what we're after.
Okay, awesome. I do have now some questions then. Where like I've seen a number of TMP plans around the place. They include like infrastructure examples, whether photos, design drawings, etc., to elaborate on their points of we want all inclusive infrastructure, AAA standards. Like this is college just using the words, and there's some appendix I can't access here right now about that because like I'm wondering about particularly whether that's protected intersections like Dutch roundabouts, continuous crosswalks, these very critical infrastructure pieces to actually reach those goals of safety. Whether those things are like in a different document could be included here, like where are those kind of things?
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you for the question. There's a couple things in that. One, where I agree there have been documents and there are other documents that have that prescribed design guideline, whatever it might be in the document itself embedded. And we had a little bit of that in our ATNP.
Yeah.
We've tried to remove that and pull away from that to create a more sustainable document. And we've done, as per BC Active Transportation guidelines as amended from time to time. So we want to try to refer to things and speak more in generalities. But I think that would be good commentary, again, if this committee is more desirous of, no, we want to be prescriptive and maybe this is a specific area. That would be feedback that this committee could give us and a change that we could look at. But as of now, the direction is not to put those details in and speak more in generalities or refer to other supporting documents. And we don't have a design guideline that we've created inside of Colwood. As I mentioned, we refer to BC Active Transportation guidelines or other TAC supplementary guidelines.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah.
And just add that this TMP doesn't have the funding to get into that kind of depth and detail to add to this document with regards to budget.
Okay, I do have, I'd be curious to, hear committee members on this. Uh, I personally like to have some descriptive things, even if it's just like a picture to elaborate, to actually give some more guidance, because I've seen in other municipalities and I've heard from some people where they'll talk about something and they just don't really follow that. And there's the kind of the vagueness, and that vagueness, they kind of get, lost in space to some capacity. So I would appreciate, maybe like if we want to talk about, safe infrastructure upgrades for intersections, to maybe have just some photos of like what ideally are we aiming for. So in particular, I maybe want to see some people's opinions on whether we can do a motion on maybe including, protected intersection designs, whether it's some Dutch roundabouts. I think there is even one in Royal Bay that was built. So that was a pleasant surprise on that, but also maybe to include just some more of those, like, concrete, like what are we actually looking for in terms of infrastructure design.
I think if it's helpful, a lot of that went into the 2015 TMP. It had a lot of aspirational diagrams to explain, kind of what we're talking about so that we would all be on the same page, but it didn't go far enough to say whether or not that could actually be accommodated in different locations in Colwood. So some of that is kind of the precursor to the work that we're doing here. So now we're trying to update it. And the first question that I think we're being asked about is in regards to the mode share. So because I was here, I'll just give you the background quickly, that when we looked at the mode share and we saw that the majority was made by car, we were looking to, well, how do we change that? How do we get more people out of their cars and doing other things? And to do that, we noted the infrastructure deficit. There weren't bike lanes, there weren't a lot of things. So hence the hierarchy that we identified. So now we're checking in with our community through this committee and trying to find out, where do you think that should go? So if that helps at all.
Somewhat. Maybe we do this later in this conversation with the TMP, but I would like to make a motion to that committee recommend to staff council to include designs of when they're talking about intersections upgrades, what that would look like. So whether say there's two protected bike lanes coming together. It's like I'm getting a bit lost. Okay, I'm getting a bit lost. Sorry. That committee recommend to staff to include infrastructure examples for different designs they wanted to go. So that maybe that's a Dutch roundabout, maybe that's a protected intersection. Kind of getting lost with the wording there, but something around that.
So I think you're looking to make a motion that illustrations be included.
Yes.
To identify the suggested options for intersection designs.
Yeah.
That's just waiting for the corporate officer to catch up here.
I'm happy to take note of all of these. I'm assuming that this is going to be a pretty fulsome discussion and there might be more comments like this and present them afterwards, but I have captured what you've mentioned, Colin, if that's okay.
Perfect. All right. Stuart.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I guess letting us off the hook by not expecting us to move approval of a transportation plan that seems like it's still perhaps in flux. So many questions, so many thoughts. I'm going to blurt them all out. You can answer as many as you want. Hopefully some of them will stick in your head and you might make use of them. You may not. As I sort of went in a little bit on the Cairndale intersection, I really think it would be useful to have a low, medium, high level of cycling infrastructure, perhaps sidewalks as well, but cycling especially, because quite frankly, I think the goal is to have, is it 8% or 10% of trips by cycle? So you've got car trips, you can easily divide by 10 and say that's how many bikes are going to be. And is it, what kind of justification is worthwhile for that? So that's one of my beasts. And maybe it's done by BC Transit and the like, what's needed in the way of transit improvements and bus bays and that. I saw, and again, I did maybe spend 2 hours, but I might not have been 100% when I spent those 2 hours reading it all. I saw there was reference to a couple of BC Transit studies that may have all the information that I'm not seeing. I think the concept of having appendices, you could probably do something like that in appendices, saying here's the bus stop. It would help, I think, a lot. Yeah, again, one of my hobby horses is the concept of a bikeway along Wishart Road and through Royal Roads to the Galloping Goose. I think that would have incredible value for the city. You could usually then not put bike lanes on Souk Road, and that would save gazillions of dollars and some real tricky right-of-way issues that you may have if the ultimate cross-section for Souk Road included 4 lanes and bus lanes and what have you. So I think that's something that needs to be done. And I notice on the very last page of this document, it's the only time it came up, but what was it said here on page 84, Royal Roads University Department of National Defense. It talks about trying to have a pathway through there. Obviously, it's going to be difficult. The easiest thing for national defense and the First Nations is to say no and to stop it. But I think it's incredibly valuable for the city. So hopefully there will be some effort put into that. Generally, the 10-year time frame that seems to be talked about everywhere. If we look now at what's gone on in Colwood in the last 10 years or so, we probably have a fairly defined population based on what's been zoned today. And so we could base these things on population as opposed to arbitrary 10 years, whatever it would be. And, by the time we're 25,000 people, we need to do X on Latoria or Y on, or maybe it's all on Machosen. That to me, that might be a little more useful. Another thing that's in the Transportation Master Plan talks about upgrading the section of Souk Road between VMP and Machosen to the 4-lane cross section. Before that's endorsed, it would seem to me to look at, if that was a 2-lane cross section, would that restrict the amount of traffic coming in that direction and therefore perhaps aid the people coming out Machosen to Souk Road and make their trip a little easier? So I'm not, while logically you'd think Souk Road 4 lanes is a good thing, I'm not so sure that there isn't benefits to looking at not making it 4 lanes and therefore facilitating the Machosen to Souk route that so many want to take. I think before it's all said and done, there needs to be a real thinking of the concept of making Machosen Road 4 lanes from Wishart to Machosen. I'm sure the traffic numbers sort of indicate it's a good thing, but the idea of running a 4-lane highway through an existing neighborhood is, 1950s engineering school, kind of frowned upon. I don't know what the effects would be on that neighborhood to have that big of a road running through it. So might turn out to be the best answer and that, but it's something I think widening to 4 and 5 lanes in that section is something that should be done carefully. There used to be, Councillor Day, you will remember this, there used to be a connection from VMP through the Allendale lands going to Machosen, but now it seems to be going just straight down Allendale, and then I guess whatever connection benefits it has, you go down to Wishart, turn left and on to Machosen. So again, if that's a decision that's been made, it's not explained that I could see in the document, but whatever.
It hasn't been made, and it's on my list.
Well, you were the one who brought it up the first time that it caught me. I didn't realize it till you mentioned it a few years ago. And then sort of a pet again, when we talk about, well, gee, maybe we should expand the transit growth area, so that'll be good for transit. I'm not so sure that that's a viable reason, and yet you put it in this document, and at the end of the day, this is going to be one of the foundational documents for the city. The Transportation Master Plan is a huge thing. So you know, if people come along and say, well, we should do this project because it's referenced in the transportation master plan, you're giving them an opening for an argument that may or may not resonate with the people. So again, I'm cautious about things like that. And then I think there was just a couple other points I had marked here, and then I'll shut up. Oh, the map 5 average daily volumes. For some reason, the Ocean Boulevard traffic onto Island Highway isn't shown. And I don't. It's a fairly major road. I would think there's a whole bunch of cars going that way. So I don't know what that says.
Belmont to Island Highway, you mean?
Hmm?
Belmont Road to
I
Island
guess it's
Highway?
Belmont Road
Yeah,
there, isn't it?
yeah.
Okay, Belmont Road on the highway. Yeah. But there's a lot of cars there, and there's some issues getting out of the rec center in the morning. But again, it would seem to me that it should be incorporated. So I'm sorry to just give you that big shopping list without any clarity on what I think I should do on most of those points. But I think it would be helpful to, you know, to sort of build a good foundation for this plan. And as I said, it's a tough one to do. I recognize that, but when it's done, we look at the last one, had the last 11 years and counting. So let's think of those things and see if we can improve it. Thank you.
I've been kind of keeping a list here for your notes, and I'll do the same for others. I just wanted to check in if I missed anything really important. Low, medium, and high for cycling, illustrations for recommended options, transit studies for increased service, Allendale to Machosen for cars, Ocean to Belmont to Island Highway on the plan. There was maybe something else that I missed. Oh, 4 laning. BMP. Perfect. I'll move to the next person.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to refer back to what Colin mentioned about some specifics. I think if I'm correct, what Josh said was we're looking to move the document forward. We're not actually here to talk about specifics like we did earlier this evening. We talked about the VMP Cairndale specifics. So we're not really into. I don't think we're looking at specifics right now. We're looking at each project on its own merits. When that time comes, I think we need to look at this a little bit more generally. It's as Josh mentioned, it's an organic document that's currently under review, fine tuning the wording. So I think there's plenty of time for this committee to look at specific projects on their merits when they come up.
So I think we're looking to get the goals here. And then when we're looking to move those goals forward, more specific discussions will happen. But particularly, we're wanting to hear, from what I understand, about mode share, about a lot of the things that are in that survey, if there's anything extra that you want to add. Go ahead, Joshua.
Thank you, if I may. I think there was a comment made before about not going page by page, but there's certainly some points in the document that I think would be valuable to pause at. So I think the maps have numbers on them. We've got the hierarchy up there right now. The conversation we're having is great. We're making notes. I think it's helpful and it's context. But in terms of probably tangible things to move forward from a committee level, it'll at least be more cut and dry. Might be for us to bring up pages of the document that influence those specific projects. So not getting into the meat and potatoes of what that project might end up looking like or anything like that. But I think for the hierarchy, like I would love to hear from this committee. You know, this hierarchy is from our OCP, so we just took it and put it into the TMP because it's an adopted OCP and it's something. It's a governing document inside of Colwood. We've heard fairly loud and clearly that that is not something we want to follow. So we've put it in our survey and we've asked people that we haven't put it out yet, but we've drafted a survey. And I think it's the first question. It's, you know, what is the most important to you? What should the hierarchy order be to you? I think for this committee to, as a group, reorder that and share that and gift that to staff would be very helpful. Going into map number 3 is our network classification, our cycling network, our pedestrian network, looking at those maps. And tonight as a group, or whether you've reviewed them ahead of time and have your comments, those are things like that, you know, there are foundational blocks in this document that we can and should be adjusting right now that will then influence the specific projects we look to bring forward later. So I do think that's something we could probably look at and actually make a dent in tonight with not too much effort.
Thank you. Okay, done.
Thank you. Actually, this is one of the modal hierarchy is one of the items that I've been struggling with in reading all of this all along. My thoughts and my comments on this is probably make it a little bit more convoluted, but hopefully longer term, make it a little bit easier to manage. When you look at the transportation network, you look at the cycling network and the pedestrian network in Colwood, they're all using predominantly all of the same, most of the time, all the same routes. So we are a commuter community. You know, we don't have a lot of industry here. We don't have a lot of commercial enterprise here that is going to have most of our citizens actually staying in the community or getting more on the West Shore than it used to be. But the predominant traffic flow, the predominant movement is in between West Shore and the peninsula somewhere. And all of the machinations that we all go through on that. So when I look at this modal hierarchy and the top one is walking, I look at it more around, when I think of these types of things, I think of, we have our feeder for commuting. So then when you take the base map where most of our transportation is by car, you can see it right there. You use that as a foundation, and then from a safety perspective and a satisfaction perspective, you start putting some of the other pieces on top of it as a hierarchy. So when you look at something like Souk Road, widening Souk Road and putting bicycle lanes or those types of things on Souk Road, is that the best way to go forward? Or is there another way, to Stuart's conversation earlier, and one we've had many times, is making those bike routes more accessible so that they're not working or they're not trying to access and use the same infrastructure that a lot of vehicles are at the same time. And I know there's periods of time where it's heavy versus low, but really looking at the modal hierarchy from a safety perspective and transposing each one of those maps on top of each other with your transportation network, your feeder network being the base, is probably going to be where you're going to get the most benefit out of managing some sort of a modal hierarchy. That modal hierarchy does not work for the arterial, but it works very well for the neighborhoods. And then if you work the feeder, it might be a mix, because there will be bicycles going in, moving towards their destination, still a predominant level of vehicular traffic. And then of course you have your goods movement as well. We have, last time we were here, we talked a lot about Metchosin corridor and what that might end up looking like. And a lot of conversation was, there's a lot of big trucks that go down there. So if it's going to be looked at, some of that, it's more of, it's turning into an arterial, but it's always been built originally as a feeder. So when you look at those things and you actually add them on top of each other, you're probably going to end up with a different map for each one of those than what is in place today. And they're not going to be this for every instance. It's not always going to be the same hierarchy. And that's where I said it's going to be a little bit more convoluted in my mind, because Metchosin, Souk, Wishart to a certain, Wishart is less than Metchosin, but Metchosin, VMP, Souk Road are big roads that are running through Colwood. Looking at those with a different lens on this hierarchy than the other feeder roads, neighborhood roads, is going to really be where you're going to get your best benefit of public dollars being spent. You can't, this isn't a one does all. It's too broad, and it doesn't actually fit anything, actually, the way it's currently set up. You almost need to in my mind, you need to organize them by the size of the corridor and the purpose of the corridor that you're working with, and then start moving some of the other modes of transportation off of those larger. Instead of trying to incorporate them all, try to move them off and give easy access to those other modes of transportation going the same direction, but in a safer location than actually having them trying to be putting in and taking more width up to be able to try to put absolutely everything in one. I don't see it's feasible in the size of our community and the more rural community that we have. And again, this is my personal opinion. The best thing you can possibly do to screw up a city is do what Victoria did. Like that place is completely unserviceable. You can't get around, you can't walk, you can't cycle. I don't know how many people get hit a day on cyclists because people don't know they're supposed to wait for the cyclist to go whizzing by them on the right. That mentality or that modal, that hierarchy is a really good example of how not to do it, in my personal opinion. They just didn't think through everything. They just said, we're going to get more bikes in, that's all we're going to do. I think their mandate was, we want vehicular traffic to be gone by 2030 or something like that. Great, but it's not feasible. So that's, I don't know, hopefully I'm making sense. And so I've been thinking about this a lot since I was going through the document. Is I really think it needs to be corridor specific and slight adjustments in the hierarchy, modal hierarchy for each one of the corridors, depending on what they're going to be doing. It's going to be really tough because they're both residential and arterial. So I don't know if that's going to help or not, but it's just what I've been thinking a lot on this one. I don't think this works. Period.
I appreciate those comments, because I do think that despite best intentions, some roads just aren't well suited to the multi-use aspect, and it's been difficult to see that through. So it's interesting how to figure out how to put this forward to you. I'll go to next person. David.
Thank you. Personally, I really like the modal hierarchy, but I do agree. Some of the major arterials, absolutely, you can't fit everything in there. I think that we have a traffic congestion problem in Colwood. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. I don't think that I don't want to see 79% of all new residents that are moving in driving a vehicle. I don't think anyone wants to see that. So if we don't offer any alternatives, better transit, more frequent transit, more sidewalks, better connections to bus stops, safe cycling infrastructure, nobody's going to choose it if it's not there. So yeah, absolutely, we need to be smart about where we put it. I was actually cycling in City of Victoria before the meeting, and I got to tell you, I love it. I love going down there. The pedestrian crossings are automated. There's no beg buttons. I don't have to stand there and push a button. There's sensors in the bike lane for the traffic lights. You don't have to push a button. You don't have to look for a button. You just stop and you get your turn. Vehicular traffic is stopped and you get a safe go on your bike. You're not worried about getting right or left hooked. Like, yeah. There's a lot of benefits to providing other forms of transport than a private vehicle. And, you know, it's the mode share for Victoria is coming up to be the highest in Canada for cycling and walking. And that's just because they're accommodating those people. So I think it's fantastic. And I think up until now, we've got a patchwork of bike lanes and sidewalks, which is mostly developer driven. Not mentioning Royal Bay is fantastic, but the rest of it, there's a lot of patchwork and not a lot of connectivity when you get off the regional trail. So I'm all for it. Yeah.
So it just occurred to me that there is some, I don't know if there are appendices, but there are lists for priorities for sidewalks. There's also, I think what we need to come up with to go with our transportation master plan is some specific routes for cycling to accommodate different directions for cycling. So I'd be interested to try to coordinate the lists that we have to some priorities that could be recommended to council. So, you know, for the next 5 years, we're going to focus on maybe it's the Royal Roads, Wishart Road connectivity. There's other cycling paths that were certainly became more front of mind for me when my kids were working in the big box district in Langford. So there are a number of cycling paths that will lead you through up to the Meaford VMP section, and that goes through the back of the cemetery. And there could be some small improvements that make big gains for being able to, you know, have a cyclist map and a connectivity that works for that, and allow the VMPs and the Souk roads to be more car auto oriented. But I don't know if that's something that that we could pull up on. I do appreciate the hierarchy. I do think that we got to get going to not end up in gridlock like every other community that is already struggling with gridlock. We've got to find a way to get people onto that. Josh?
If I may, so one of the things we've tossed around in the draft mode of this transportation plan has been to just remove the hierarchy from the plan altogether. And I think inside of that, that you mentioned sort of how do we get more granular into those aspects. And I think an attempt has been made probably through our network diagram. So we've got our street network classification, we've got our cycling network, and I think that we can tackle some of those comments you've made. But again, it'd be committee to speak to this, but that might be something that gives this committee some comfort, is seeing that that doesn't seem to apply to a TMP framework, that hierarchy right there. Maybe this committee would say, okay, well, let's not pull that from the OCP. Let's leave that alone in the OCP. And then maybe we focus on some of the network maps and talk about, and maybe there's a goods classification one we want to add or something like that. But we have the cycling one, so we can already talk about, okay, well, I don't want to see that, you know, buffered bike lane or a Sharrow there. I want to see a higher or lower standard. We can start to pick that apart and give that feedback tonight. That could be a path forward if we want to sort of start just moving through some of the ticket items here. Like this screen could go away if we just say we don't want it anymore. We do, and we can start to move through some concrete examples.
Okay, I'll go to Angus.
Thank you. I'd like to see this plan start to deal with some of the issues that are facing us for the future. And I think like one of the things right now they're talking a lot about is cheaper bus fares to get people into a transportation mode. And I think that's something that the Colwood needs to start to look at. Do we have bus hubs set up in Royal Bay? Do we have bus hubs at the rec center and wherever else they have to be, so that if people are riding them, they get, they can buy a monthly pass and they're cheaper if they're doing something like that. So we get people out of their car, because we are facing this problem that we have everybody in their car and they're just racing through our community. And everything we've talked about tonight is car related issues. So we need to make a change for the future. If we want to be able to get through the community in a way where it's safe. So we do need a very strong walking, biking network, which is well connected. It's great to see that bridge being put over top of the highway. I mean, that was a real feather. But should we be doing more underground connections and picking something like what Stuart's talking about is Wishart? It connects with almost every school and the Galloping Goose. I mean, how many communities would love to have the Galloping Goose in their community? I mean, we don't, and we're not even talking about that as a key for transportation. It connects us with all the other communities out here. Plus, Victoria, we have two options of how to get into Victoria. So we should really be pushing that a lot more and really increasing the availability of how to get to that, onto that. And I think the waterfront committee is doing that same thing with putting in something like in that idea, pushing that idea. But we also have some real big barriers. We have on the Chosen Road, we have a school that just clogs the place up, the road up. And we should be, as a council here, should be saying to the school board, find a new site. Or let's change this, let's change the way the school is, because it's just not working for transportation. We have Royal Bay being built, and we can't continue to just slow down through that if we're going to make this one of the major corridors. The Chosen Road is going to be a major corridor. We have to make it safe. And it's not, we heard one of the people come in tonight and just talk about its drop off. Everything's about drop off. It's nuts there. We can't go through another 10 years of that school being exactly the same way. It's got to be changed. So if you're looking at a transportation plan, that really has to deal with that problem that's right there. And then the kids need to be able to get from one side of the chosen road to the other safely. So is it going to be more underground places to get over top? But they shouldn't have to worry about getting across Machosen Road. We don't want to slow traffic down by having stop walk all the times and lights and everything else. We want to move the traffic. And we also have the in railway. Something's got to happen with that. I mean, they are talking about it. If the feds start to put a whole bunch of money into what's going on out here at Esquimalt Harbor and stuff like that, I mean, that's a reality check. It's gonna bring even more people here. We should be looking at our major transportation, saying, okay, this is a major bus route with the idea that this is going to be a future rail line of, some kind of LRT or something that's going to happen, and plan for that. I mean, I really like to see some things for the future, not just the same, reality. I mean, okay, we have to do this for the next 5 years. This is what we're going to do. But I think the future is here. It's right at us right now. We're growing so fast out here, and we really need to start putting some more of the future plans and the connections there, and identify the problems. If there is a problem with the school being in the wrong place, or there's a problem with a road that needs to connect with another couple of roads, and some property has to be bought so that those roads can interconnect, so people can easily get from one place in the community to another place. And stay off the major roads. Those are the types of things I'd like to see in here. I don't think we've even ever talked about that at all. Is, what would it be like if some of these roads all started to connect a little bit more? You know, Hatley Road is another. It's just an example. Like, I mean, come on, guys. It's really something that, does it really connect well, or do we have to redesign it some way so it makes more sense? And so those are kind of the comments I'm looking at. I really like to see in this master plan a little bit more future thought with like this is what we'd like to do on this road. And if it's going to be 2 lanes now, then it's going to be 4 lanes, and then we're going to put down and increase the bus lanes. And then we're going to put some kind of LRT on here. This is where it's going to go. So people can start thinking about that, and also thinking about where they want to live on that. But I really think also we need to be really pushing the governments that can to get better transportation fees. That I have grandkids. I've got 13 grandkids that are in this community, and they are bus people. They can't drive. They're bus people. And they all don't tell the person how old they are until they get asked, right? But they get on free as much as they possibly can, and it's something for them. But they are great to be able to, they can go from one place to another on that bus. They got it figured out. And so if nothing else, it just needs, instead of every hour they have to wait, it would like it be every half hour. So, if anything, we should be building a bus lot somewhere on this property here or something like that, so we have more buses. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Don.
Thank you. I respect your answer, and I do understand, and I do agree. We do need to provide better alternate modes of transportation for people to get out of their cars. Absolutely. It's going to take some time. The way we do it is through the transportation plan. needs to be, in my opinion, needs to be looked at in a bit more of a structured manner than perhaps just an all-in-one. And that's just, I fully understand your opinion on Victoria. We'll agree to disagree and we'll move on with life. And I do agree with your comments about looking for the future. One of the questions I do have, and I'm not quite sure where this is going to go, but I want to be in here, is that a lot of the other infrastructure that Colwood has are under the roads. So as we look at our transportation plan and we start looking at improving the roadways and everything else, how are the other utilities being thought about or identified during that work? Should that be as part of an addendum or some recognition within the transportation plan? Because like I say, everything's underneath the roads. So it's that old comment that everybody jokes about, is that you pave the road and 2 weeks later someone else comes and digs it up to put a new water main in, and then 3 weeks after that they come in and put a sewer main. You know, it's how is that all being managed within, and it's not just the transportation plan, it's the infrastructure plan, it's the sewage plan, it's the water main plan, the storm drain, they all come together. And the transportation plan is just one more item that fits in all of those. How is that being looked at from the overall strategy? Is that too big of a question?
No, it's not too big of a question. It's probably too big of an answer. It's difficult. And we try to at least go a year so people maybe forget that we paved it. But it is difficult. I mean, we do try. It's an interesting dynamic here. In the Capital Regional District, in my career before I came to the islands, I got to be my own island. Like when I worked in Salmon Arm, I got to control Salmon Arm's transit. I got to control Salmon Arm's water, got to control Salmon Arm's sewer. We were in charge of our stuff because it was all our stuff. Here, like transit, we don't get much of a say. There's a commission here, right? And in the commission, we have a very small voice. But transit goes on, put a bunch of people somewhere, put a bunch of jobs somewhere, and we'll service it every half hour or every 20 minutes. We'll put 10 buses on it. We'll put a hub there. But if we continue to go, that's somebody said about transit growth, should we be expanding it? The reason we suggest doing that is if we put more density there, then transit will show up. If you want a light rail line, if you watch Vancouver, when they put the light rail line out to Surrey and some of those other places, it just blew up. There was like 20-story buildings everywhere so that the transit could be used. Our infrastructure that we control, like our sewer, we have a master plan for. Our storm, we have a master plan for, but we don't have water. That CRD is water. We do meet with gas and hydro and TELUS and all of these different entities, and we say to them, okay, do you have anything big going on? Like, is something going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years? And we have these meetings with them and we go, oh, okay, well, CRD says, well, we're putting a water main here, and hydro says we're putting here. And we go, well, we're hoping to pave this road here. Is anybody going to do anything in the next 5 years? And if they all say no, then we'll go ahead and pave it. So we try to put our projects and have some kind of semblance of order, but then somebody comes along and misses a budget and all of that. So we do try to take that into consideration, but there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that we don't even actually have control over. I don't know if that's a good answer or a bad answer, but give you an idea. Okay.
All right. Roger.
Thank you, Chair. I totally agree with Angus, actually Stuart and Don. I think they hit a lot of the topics. And one mentioned about light rail transit. I think from what I understood, read, the First Nations have bought into it now and they're going to divert on the outside of the reserve. So I think with the federal money coming up, there's probably a good likelihood that we could see something along those lines. And if we do, this is really going to impact our transportation network plan, big time. And that's why I sort of think that Stuart is right on. And from what I can recall, bicycles, cars, and pedestrians don't mix. They're inert. And the more we can keep them apart, the better off everybody is. I understand now that quite a few pedestrians on the Goose are being clipped by bicycles going by. So now bicycles are taking the place of cars. in accidents. And Victoria's announced 25% increase in traffic accidents in downtown. The West Shore in August announced 24% increase in accidents. So the more we can keep cyclists and pedestrians away from cars, especially on our arterial routes, I think is very, very important. You've heard a lot of suggestions. I would dearly love to recommend that this be moved forward, but as you can see, there's lots of questions that have to be answered. I was looking at some of the intersections, but I couldn't find the details of it. So to recommend to council that they accept this in its preliminary stage, I honestly feel that we need more information on specifics, as Colin was mentioning. And just to give a blanket, because I know it's happened in this community in the past when we've given blankets and it doesn't work out that well. So if we can get to some of the specifics of how this is going to be handled, I think it would be better off. And I think this is such an important part to Colwood's growth and success. But I'd like to see more details. As you know, the devil's in the details. Thank you.
Through the chair. On one hand, I couldn't agree with you more. It would be awesome if we could get details. But this really is a fundamental philosophical guiding document that gives us the tenets of how would we like to move forward. So for instance, one of them I heard tonight was, and again, if the committee makes this recommendation, this will change the TMP, that we, try to get bikes and peds away from arterial traffic. Because right now, all of our arterial cross sections have bikes and pedestrians on there. And our solution to trying to make it safer is to protect them with some kind of physical barrier or an elevation change, which is costly. So that is a needle mover. If you were to make a motion that council adopted that said, try not to put bikes and peds on arterials, but try to move them off to other corridors, that would be a foundational shift. But if you want us to tell you how we would do that and what intersection to what intersection that's going to look like, we're going to need 3 years and $5 million because we're basically going to be designing 60 different projects. That's not what this document's about. It's not about specifics. It's about philosophies and guiding documents to allow us to bring projects forward for consideration. At 77 and 79 of the document that you have in front of you, there's a bunch of road projects for 1 to 5 years and 5 to 10, and there's a bunch of active transportation projects. If you want to get into specifics, you can go to those projects and tell us, we don't like this one. We think this one should be moved. This one should go here. That one should go here. That would be helpful. I think it's difficult to just philosophically, other than, like I say, if somebody made a motion tonight akin to what I heard tonight, which is to get those people away from cars and arterials, that would be a game changer. But specifics, that's not this document.
I think that makes things quite difficult because on the one hand, you're asking for our input, but on the other hand, you're telling me that the input is on a general document, not a specific direction. So it really is nailing Jello to a wall here. But I've heard a lot of good comments. I don't think Colwood is going to be all one thing anytime quickly because I've been working at this for 25 years now, trying to make anything happen is very hard. And they keep changing the game, right? So used to be that we had our bus loop and it was at Ocean View or Ocean Boulevard and Island Highway. And then the traffic got so congested that the buses couldn't go into the loop anymore. And then they changed their minds in transit, put their connections in Langford instead. So again, we're stuck with a bit of jello on the wall there. So we're going to try to bring forward some recommendations so that when this goes out to the community can help us refine the things that they find palatable in our plan. And with that, I'm going to move on to Stuart.
Maybe just to argue with John a little bit about specifics. If we look at the cycling network and pedestrian plans and the road plans, then there's not a lot of roads. I mean, you could write down, and VMP, we suspect when population warrants, it's going to be a 4 or 5 lane road with I guess it's got a multi-use pathway beside it, and that's defined. It's trying to wrestle the sort of policy side of it to one size fits all that I think some of us are struggling with. So if it's a question of, yeah, we'd like to have bike lanes everywhere, but we can't. And so on, the list of the 6 or 7 major roads in Colwood and say, here's our thoughts on these ones. We could probably wrestle that to something meaningful, whatever it might be. Kelly Road, we might say, well, we're going to ignore that for 20 years and not do anything. Or maybe we'll say, build it tomorrow. I don't know what this would be. But I think you can get specifics in a lot of ways that would. I know I suffer from being a guy who gets down in the weeds too much too quickly, and perhaps the rest of the committee suffers from that as well. And you sort of, my eyes glaze over with a lot of the policy stuff when it's too over, and you're trying to find an overarching, philosophy behind bike lanes on roads in Colwood instead of just saying we're going to put them here and there. So that's just a counter to your thoughts.
I actually, I think early in the meeting, Joshua had suggested to go to those maps and tell us which ones you wanted bike lanes on, tell us which ones you wanted sidewalks on. We would love to go there from a specific point of view, for sure.
Probably before 9 o'clock at night, though. Sandra.
I just wanted to, in the draft survey that's included as an appendix on your agenda, there is a question about how should cycling lanes be considered on specific arterial routes. And so we're interested in hearing from people, off-road trail connections, protected bike lanes for each of those specific routes, followed by a question about trail connections. And so I think we're going to try and get at that in the next round of survey information. It may inform the very information you're talking about in the next draft of the plan.
Okay, I'm going to Roger.
Through the chair, John, before your time here, I brought some issues to engineering, and I was told, oh, it was passed by council. It's in the master transportation plan. And then the plans get drawn. So that's my worry. I'm not disputing anything you're saying, but the reality is it gets thrown back in residents' faces when they see something that they didn't really agree with, but it's incorporated in the master transportation plan. That's why I'd like to see a few more specifics. So, because it's happened many times to many people, and I just think it's unfortunate. I know you've made a big change in it, but I would like to see a little bit more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. And towards that end of a little bit more detail, I have just a couple of things that I wanted to throw out because I'd like to hear from the committee on them. There was a few connections that I'm aware of that I didn't see anywhere in the TMP. One is the connection from Heatherbell Road to the Royal Road University lands. There was kind of a fire access gate at the end of Heatherbell. And that was very critical at one point in time and a big part of public discussion about safe access to higher ground in the event of a tsunami, etc. What if there was a forest fire? Lots of
Peds and bikes?
Pardon?
Peds and bikes?
Yeah. And so that's another way to get people off of some of the main thoroughfares. The cemetery to Hatley Park Cemetery to Machosen Road route. There's kind of some connections. Some of it's on neighborhood streets, which was not really a cycle lane, but there's connections through crosswalks. And then there's actually a path that runs in behind between the two cemeteries and connects up in there to Meaford, where you actually also connect up to through Langford into the rail trail. So all important things, if LRT ever comes to ENN Rail Trail, those are connections that I just want to put a pin in, that they should somewhere be drawn in our maps. Because there's, and then I just had, that I thought on our survey, we needed to maybe include a more focused question on which routes residents use most often. And I realize that's influenced by existing conditions, but that was some place where we could get feedback from, where, you know, a hierarchy of needs, if you will, by the number of people who are putting their hands up that this is their route and this is an area that would benefit from some more infrastructure upgrades.
Would that be routes for peds, bikes, and cars? Just
Yes.
peds, just bikes? All three?
All three, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't want to forget about cars, because we are all I'm often in my car, most often these days, for various reasons, but I want to be able to get out on my feet, and, you know, I want to be able to ride my bike and feel safe. So I'm looking to find those, and bringing up the maps. I want to sincerely advocate for the road connection from the light at Allendale on VMP through the gravel pit onto Machosen Road for cars, because I know from our statistics that we did, that our busiest section of road in all of Colwood is Souk Road between VMP and Machosen. And that corridor is a mirror of that area, so that as congestion gets worse, I think that is a really important connection. And it has a few other benefits. There will also be the Allendale connection would be excellent for cyclists and pedestrians, because it's level and it makes a connection where you don't have to go up over the mountain to make that connection. And when you look at the map, you'll see that there's a rather big rectangle with no cross connections between Wishart and Cairndale and VMP and Souk Road and the Chosen Road, that kind of rectangulish area. And there's lots of reasons to be focused in that direction. And I'll move to, is it Roger or David? Roger.
Sorry, Chair, just clarity on that last point. And not through the existing Allendale Road. Do you want to go up through the private property lands at this point?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
John, I didn't think we were going to get into this specifics, but I've had many people ask, is there a possibility of having a controlled crosswalk at the top of Pitt Hill, say somewhere around Kenny Court, between Kenny Court and, I don't know, Hatley, and it would tie in very nicely with Stuart's suggesting, because people could come along the Ocean Boulevard, along the new proposed Royal Bay Trail, to get onto Perimeter, come up, and then go across the road and get onto Royal Bay Trail. So it would just be a continuous loop. And a lot of people are walking that now, so it would be and apparently they have to go all the way up to Fairview to get the control crosswalk to get across and come down. That's quite a distance. And they are hoping that because of the Perimeter Trail extension, which will happen, I guess, fairly soon, and to tie in with the Royal Bay Trail. So it might be something to look at when you're looking at the design of Machosen Road.
Okay, so I'm wanting to pull us back to we're not suggesting adoption of the draft transportation plan, but we're needing to make a recommendation to council with a number of these things that we've talked about. And Heather, do you have a list?
I do believe I've captured the majority. Some of the more specifics, I saw John and Joshua kind of writing down some of the very specific points that you made. But you can take a look up on the screen. I may have to put it into a bigger font. And then I think staff's intention after this is for the committee to endorse council sending this to phase 2, along with this feedback would be on the next slide is what I have coming up.
Joshua.
Thank you, if I may. A component that would really help staff in our phase 2 engagement would be getting clarity from committee on the proposed survey. So we've drafted a survey. It's not yet been sent out. It's not for public consumption yet, but we were hoping the next touch point when this recommendation goes back to council from committee, that would gift us clarity from council's perspective to say, go ahead with this survey and send it out. So again, I think going through this would be great, but that would be like a tangible piece that staff would really benefit getting some clarity from council on.
Okay, I'd like to try to entertain that as 2 different motions. If you could put the notes back up there, I want to give the committee an opportunity to read through it and make sure that we didn't miss something that somebody felt was critical. Are you ready?
Right. I think that's an admirable job of capturing a lot of what we said. Well done. You get an added girl for that one. And I would move that, I guess it's a motion. So I would move that motion.
And I just, I'm looking for and not seeing the connection between Allendale and Machosen Road.
I was typing during that point. I flagged it at 9:08 that you said that to go back as a reference, knowing that you're one of our council members here.
Sure.
If you want to relay exactly what you were saying there, that'd be great.
Sure. I want to add the connection between Allendale, where it meets and through the Allendale connecting to Machosen Road. And it is pretty evident in one of the maps.
I have the physical, we have seen it in the map, so
Yeah.
we know physically what she's trying to get, so we're good that way. Just putting the
So I
verbiage
just
for the
want to
connection.
check in with the committee. Does anyone object to my adding it to our list? Not seeing any objections, and we could add it to our motion, and then I'll go to Colin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to add to this list the explicit mention to include protected intersections, Dutch style roundabouts, pedestrian islands, raised crosswalks, those kind of things to the list if that is possible to add to the list. Sure. I think I did send it into email. Hopefully that came your way, Heather, to add to this whole list, to mention and explicitly mention protected intersections, Dutch style roundabouts, pedestrian islands, raised crosswalks to, improve actual, safety, traffic calming, etc. But that last bit doesn't have to get added, just those, particular infrastructure types to be included so that when, staff is looking at these recommendations and that they can see those explicit infrastructure recommendations. I do thank everyone for their patience. I had a final exam earlier today, so my brain is just like dead and splatterbrain over the place. So I do apologize for splatterbrain, but I thank you for your patience with that. Thank you.
I'm just giving Heather a minute to catch up, and I'm going to come to you folks. Just we're throwing a lot out here late at night here. And that's mostly because when I'm having to take minutes, I go completely crazy trying to listen and type. It's a connection between Allendale Road or maybe the easier way to say it is connect Allendale Road from Veterans Memorial Parkway to Machosen Road. And the engineers will know what I mean. It'll be on the map and make it easier. Yeah, I know it's just hard, and I'm trying to make sure to give everybody space and time. Go ahead, Roger.
Yes, I would like to also, I've had a lot of people hoping that staff will be able to maintain the back entrance to West Shore Parks and Recreation, and also maintain the slip lane onto the Old Island Highway from Ocean Boulevard. A lot of people are very upset that they think that's going to be removed either by transit or by Colwood. And in fact, there's a group ready with placards and everything ready to go when the minute they hear that. So I would like to see staff do all they can to maintain that back entrance and the slip lane, because eliminating the back entrance means it's another set of full traffic lights on the Old Island Highway so people could exit the West Shore Parks and Recreation. So I'd really like to see that maintained. Thank you.
Does any member of the committee have a problem with that? Nope. Right, I'm getting to you. I'm just trying to let Heather catch up. Trying to make sure we capture. Because it's late and we're all getting a little punchy. And the slip lane to Island Highway. Perfect. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple things. I'm not in favor, I don't know how I'm gonna frame this or how we're gonna vote on this, but I don't know what a Dutch roundabout is. I have no idea. And quite frankly, we're gonna mention it in there that here's a picture and it's in our thinking? Or does that mean that we have to do a distillation for every project through these, starting with these processes and, again, without having a frame of reference or some pictures or an understanding of the impacts. If we build a Dutch roundabout, well, what does that do for the pedestrians? If we build a pedestrian island, what does that do for the cyclists? I don't have any context.
So I think maybe we can make it more generic, but what I understood from that was to give us kind of a drop-down menu of options to consider.
So consider, but there's the word explicit in there. So that means the exclusion of others. I don't like that. And so if it's just, here's some ideas, reflect on those and report out, fantastic.
Yeah,
If
so
it
I think
starts with a Dutch roundabout, I don't know what that is and I can't support that.
Great. I think we're getting late, so I'm just going to try to, I'm just trying for clarity here. I'm not trying to argue. I'm just saying that how I heard and what I see add up to consider protection at intersections. And here's the drop-down menu of consider all of these options.
I like that, but then can we get rid of
Yeah.
explicit and put in consider?
How about explicitly consider safety?
Yeah. Fill your boots.
But the point was that it was trying to make sure that we're really are talking about how we're achieving safety.
One further point, that this city maintains no control over access to the rear lot of West Shore Parks and Rec. And as your board representative, I can tell you that we are going down that road, and it's because people keep running over people on our property. And so it remains outside the purview of this city to regulate, period. And it's certainly not BC Transit's role either. It'll be the board, period. So you can prepare your sandwich board, Mr. Conrad. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. And I realize we haven't got to the survey work yet. I'm going to try to get to that next. We have a motion. I haven't heard anyone jumping up and down that they're opposed to this. Is anyone opposed? Not seeing any. I will call it carried. And the next item up, I believe, is the survey. And this is this committee's opportunity to have an input on what goes out to the general population to get their feedback on. So do you want the transportation master plan to ask people how they want to rank the different modes? Or is that really already in our OCP and we don't need it in the TMP? Just a question for the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say that it's not required just because we've already, it's in the OCP and the TMP.
There was some discussion about maybe it doesn't need to be in the TMP.
Yeah, correct, through the chair. Based on some feedback so far that we've received, that hierarchy is intended to be removed from the TMP. So our draft right now does not have the hierarchy included. There's some mention of alignment with the OCP as a governing document. I think there's value in getting committee sense of a hierarchy or not, including it or not. And then our intent here with the survey is to get a feel from the public of what that hierarchy might be. Again, there's been some conversation around the challenges of trying to broad brush the community and get a overarching hierarchy. And I can certainly appreciate that perspective.
John.
I agree with Josh, and I think it probably should stay simply because the OCP isn't really well known across the community to begin with. It just isn't that people know that there is one, but don't really know what it is and what it is driving a lot of people. So if you give them the opportunity, you might get a sense of what was put into the OCTP might actually start changing a little bit, or the sense now after so many years of 2018, you have another 7 years of growth. You might be seeing something change, and that might actually impact both of those plans.
A quick question. Did you intend to leave cars off? Because we got cycling. Oh, there's driving. There we go. Oh, never mind. It's getting late.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've heard it both ways, but I would support leaving that in, quite frankly. And this is intended to go out to the public beyond our feelings. And I do want to hear what the public has to say. I'm happy with the rest of it, by the way. It's fantastic. Let's prioritize some of this. Thank you.
Okay. Next, Roger.
Thank you, Chair. I have to congratulate whoever was involved with this. It's a breath of fresh air. I think it's a very easy form to follow. And my concern is, how is it going to go out to the public? Because I don't think our previous surveys have been very successful, to be honest with you. Getting 12 or 50 or 90 respondents is not an overwhelming endorsement for anything. So I'd hope this survey will be well advertised, will go out to everybody, whether it or whatever. Although I know some relevance in the way the order follows on the questions. And as a person who took a couple of statistics and evaluation courses, it does show a bias. And I don't know how you chose the order to put them in, but I hope it would be random, but it didn't look that way to me. And it's a transportation survey, and yet first three choices, two of them which are active transportation. So it's one thing I did notice that I thought was flawed, but I think the overall document is good. So well done, whoever did. Thank you.
Thanks for those comments. I'll just mention that each of those questions does randomize automatically for each respondent every time the survey opens.
So this is you're talking about just being on Let's Talk Colwood? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. But
Yeah.
we have an extensive communication plan to get it out to people, including in-person engagement.
Okay. Thank you. Stuart.
Sandra, yeah, good job. Most often when I see surveys like this, they also come with a little box of any comments you want to add or anything, and it would be useful to sort of give people a chance to expound.
Thanks, Stuart. Each question will have that as well. Just brevity for presentation here. Thank you.
So no changes. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I would like to wrap this up, but we were having a discussion at this end of the table here about I would like to see that the importance of this. It should be mailed out, not the same 12 people that are watching our website. And quite frankly, that would deepen the penetration into our community, and because forever we're having to distill Machosanites out of our survey and what have you, right? I think it's worth a few $1,000s for a mail out. Thank you. And let me know if we need direction or if that's going to happen, Sandra, or what. Thank you.
That's part of our plan. Thank you, Councillor Jansen, to send out a postcard to every Colwood resident.
Thank you. And Roger.
Postcard to go to them.
Sorry, a postcard will be mailed to every Colwood address, directing them to the survey. Yeah. QR code to go to the survey. We always also offer the option, call City Hall if you would like a paper copy or someone to guide you through the survey by telephone.
This is a question basically to John, and although it's not on the survey, Ocean Boulevard is classed as a connector or feeder, pardon me. And I was wondering how you determine that classification and if it should be also included on the survey. A lot of cars use that road, a lot. And I think it deserves more attention than what it's getting, personally. And, as I said, that accident on the power pole on Souk Road, the amount of cars that chose Ocean Boulevard as an alternative, as a relief valve, basically, it just spiked. So being such a major route out of Colwood, I'm wondering if it should be considered in the survey. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, we can talk about that internally. The reason it's not considered an arterial is just because it is an internal road to Colwood. It doesn't lead anywhere with regards to another city. It's a technical driving piece, but Lagoon Road isn't on there either. So we decided to try to stay away from collectors and just do arterials, because then Wishart is a collector, Lagoon's a collector. There's just, the roads would be like 15 and it just got to be too many. So that was the reason.
Perhaps those open-ended boxes will work. So would you like a motion to recommend this the survey to council as, okay. I'm looking for someone to make the motion. Moved by Dawn. Anyone opposed? No one is opposed. Great. Okay. That completes our review for tonight, I believe, of the TMP. And the next thing is our last item, 5.4, committee member notice of motion. So I just wanted to let you know how this came about. The item was initially raised by a committee member. Thank you, Colin. And because it relates to signage and accessibility, that fell under the terms of reference of this committee. So as part of preparing the agenda, we looked at how to bring it forward. And so it was considered through staff at City Hall and then approved by council. I brought it forward as a notice of motion at a regular committee meeting just to ensure that we had checked in with council, that this was something that they would like to hear about from this committee. And there's not really a formal adopted procedure at this time, but I wanted everyone to understand so that if there is something that you want to bring forward, we are open to that, but I'm keeping a bit of a process to it so that it doesn't just come forward out of the blue and somebody thinks, well, you know, that guy must have special rights to bring a motion forward to council without their knowing about it. So I checked it out with council and make sure they want to hear about that. And then we talk about it and then give them the recommendation. And so I think for, in order to be succinct, I will move this over to Colin if you'd like to talk about the issue.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. First, I'll go over some background and purpose, then I'll show some visual aids, and then I'll show at the end the recommendation I have for us to hopefully adopt or maybe just talk about. Like many developed regions of the world, Colwood is facing and experiencing a significant demographic shift towards an older population. According to the Canadian Institute for Health Information, by 2037, the number of Canadians aged 65 and above will grow by around 65%, while the demographic of 75 plus could surge around 110%. Seniors tend to have the highest prevalence of visual impairment of any group, requiring signage with higher contrast, larger character heights, etc. Because age-related visual decline significantly impacts the ability to read, wayfinding, street, safety signs, etc., increasing the scale and legibility of city signage is a critical step in removing systematic barriers of freedom of movement, and improving these standards supports the independence of our fastest growing demographic, while also enhancing the accessibility and enjoyment of our city infrastructure for the general population. The purpose of this motion is for council to direct staff to come back with recommendations that council could move forward with in order to improve the legibility and accessibility of signage that the city of Colwood has jurisdiction over. This initiative takes action and furthers the city of Colwood's towards its strategic objectives of creating infrastructure that is built for all ages and abilities, and further builds out an age-friendly community. The motion also aligns with the city of Colwood's official community plan, transportation master plan, and age-friendly plan. And on the motion report document, I've included some objectives, actions of specifically and where those documents this kind of aligns to. That you can read to at your leisure. But some of them is developing a public space that enhances the quality of life for all people, and urban space design for all people, improving the comfort, safety, and convenience of enjoyment for cycling and walking. So in conclusion, by adopting the motion in order to increase signage size, character height, improve legibility, etc., furthers the city of Colwood towards its strategic objectives of creating infrastructure that is built for all ages and abilities, and further build an age-friendly community. And I do have some visuals. Oh, this work. Oh, there we go. So this is a sign I took particular concern around. Sort of just started to get this whole idea going. It's about 12. The top sign, I can't even read the text on the top sign. I'm like 20 years old and I can't read the top sign. It's about 12 feet off the ground, and from my, with the help of my brother and tape measure, from my standing position by the fence to my eyes to the top sign is about just under, it's about, over 113 inches, which is like, it is significant. It's extremely far off the ground. It's very difficult for me to read, which is, quite concerning because that's an issue to myself. It's going to be an issue for, people who are visually impaired, particularly around seniors who are having more, eyesight decline, according with age. This is another sign. I could read the one on your left from where I was standing, but the one across the road where there's now a brand new zebra crosswalk, I couldn't read. So in terms of navigating the city, maybe GPS goes down in a natural disaster or something, and we're trying to navigate our city. And if you're on one side of the road and you're trying to figure out which way you're navigating and you can't read the other sign, that's very problematic in terms of accessibility and just general enjoyment of our neighborhood and city. Oop. Next, Heather, please. So my recommendation is that it be recommended to council that council direct staff to review all signs over which the city of Colwood has jurisdiction over and report back with recommendations to increase signage size, character height, and improve legibility with the overall objective of enhancing the readability from a distance and improving the accessibility for community members with visual impairment, particularly considering Colwood's aging population. So if anyone has ideas or feedback before we can, hopefully adopt this, I'd be really enjoying that.
Lots of enjoyment. Okay, so like the rest of you, I'm sure I'm pretty impressed with Colin, and actually, he brings this forward. It's something I instinctively want to agree with. Seems like a nice, intelligent young man. One thing that I would want, if somebody is going to go and review all the signs in Colwood, I would like to include that they also decide which ones we don't need anymore. Like how many signs are out there that we could get rid of, because it's a forest of signs out there. I don't know how many signs there are in Colwood, but it would be in the thousands, I'm sure. And then I think, well, if there's thousands of signs, I don't know what it costs to get a new sign, especially one that's not to any known standard, and take down an old one and erect another one. Again, it's a couple $100 a sign probably. So we're not talking chump change here. So I worry about that. I suspect the signs that we have now are done to some. There's probably a Canadian sign standards branch somewhere in Ottawa that has a off floor full of people making recommendations and checking in and providing guidelines. I guess I would look over there to the Brain Trust and sort of see, what guidelines does one have when you order new signs for new streets in Royal Bay, and what does it cost to change a sign?
It might be incremental. I mean, it may take years for it to happen, but I'll let staff answer.
Yeah, I mean, there are standards with regards to your typical signage size, especially for road type signs. The first picture was more of a wayfinding sign. So that's not a standard sign. That would just be a program that we have. All the signs can change. We do have the ability to have them at any size. When you get bigger with the sign, I know it's crazy, but like you got to worry about wind, right? So when that blade gets a little longer, gets a little higher, then the bracket it holds gets a little sturdier. And then if there's 4 of them on one post, then the foundation piece gets a little more to be relative. If you said, let's do them all at once, I'm guessing it's a 2 or 3% tax increase. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? It's not a $10,000 program. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if it was something we wanted to do, I would say it would be, I haven't heard of another community doing something like this or recognizing something like this. So I actually thought that Colin was thinking it would be my idea, and then I gave it to Colin because I'm in the demographic he's talking about. But I think the incremental thing is if we want to go in that direction, it's just like we buy sign blades all the time. We're changing them out. It would take a decade plus, but we would be noticed. So we could put a budgetary item to council saying, let's spend 10,000 a year as we're upgrading signs to look at buying a better, more visual sign. So that's something we could do. And then again, with Sandra and the wayfinding signs, she's mid-program, but again, moving forward, she could start looking at different signs as well. So there's a chance, and the regulatory signs would be a little harder. I'd have to look into the information because that's Government Vehicle Act, and there may be some certain stipulations with regards to size that you can use.
Definitely. I certainly see bigger signs in other communities sometimes. So maybe there's options. Next.
Colin, my compliments to the amount of work you did for this. My concern is the cost. I believe, and John, you can verify this. When Signage did a complete change of speed limits from 50 kilometers an hour to 40 kilometers an hour, cost the district $748,000 to change those signs. And that's only one speed sign. So when you start looking at all the signs we have in Colwood, it would be well into probably the millions of dollars if the number I got from Signage was correct. If we looked at this through attrition, in other words, a sign gets knocked over or gets bent or damaged, and we brought this in, I would support it. But to have staff to go around and look at all the signs and then make recommendations on which ones we're going to change, even if my number was really exaggerated, it would still be hundreds, if not millions of dollars. So I could support this if it was through attrition, but I couldn't support going out and doing a wholesale change, saying we're going to spend, as John said, 10,000 a year or $50,000 a year, because it would probably, they would have to be replaced before we got to the end of the list, start all over again. So I think if we looked at it sensibly and said, okay, you know, this sign is getting old, it's weathered, it's peeling, it's time to be changed, implement it that way. But when you say all signs, that's a lot of signs, and I don't think it's practical. Thank you.
Thank you. Don.
Roger just said most of what I was going to say as well. The other thing I'd say as well is this is a young person thing, specifically highlighting aging population probably doesn't give you the widest perception. There's a lot of visually impaired people in Colwood, not just us old folks. So I would say probably if you want to go forward with this, I would recommend you remove the specific consideration of an aging population. Understood it's there, but singling it out, there's a lot of other people that I are friends with who also do have visual impairments that are not old. But the cost as well would be, and the recommendation of doing this, given all of the other items that are currently in play, being prioritized through your prioritization matrix would probably be, you would probably get put fairly low on the list of things that need to be done by a limited staff. So, although great work, this is really good thinking, good outside of the box thinking. I'm also colorblind, so like a certain visual colorblind. So it's not just visual; there's other parts of these things, and then that's where you start down the rabbit hole.
Just put 2 cents worth in that. I think it's worth considering making our signs a little bit larger because I find them quite difficult to read, and I've got up-to-date prescription lenses, so I should be able to see them. I'll go to Colin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee members that have mentioned some feedback. Yes, I am completely fine removing the aging population there just to make it more accessible to everyone at large. There is way more people who are visually impaired who are from a senior demographic compared to just an ageless demographic overall. So that's what my main focus was. But to remove that wording from the motion, particular right there, like the bottom, in consideration of College's aging population, that's just kind of the direction I was originally going with this. But I'm entirely fine with that being removed. And in terms of everyone's points to cost, it is absolutely critical we be well aware of our tax base and our taxpayers and being very respectful to that. My entire intention here, and maybe we add some words to make it more clear, is it to be over time. So maybe there's a new development where a brand new sign is being put up that the city has jurisdiction over. That's where the all is coming from. This all signs that we have jurisdiction over. And then over time, as new signs get replaced from just damage or some kid running it over, or just general new neighborhood signs, then that's where it would come in place. So we're not really, let's go around and, change every sign like in Signage did. that's a financial unfortunate situation for our taxpayers compared to over, you know, over decades, over time when there's a new sign getting replaced, new development being put in, then we look at, okay, let's having, you know, maybe a new standard of a larger sign for that. That was my initial intention, for it to be over time and, you know, to just generally increase the signage to make it more accessible to people at large. Roger.
If your motion can be changed to state that, then I could support it.
Sure,
But
absolutely.
if it
Amend
doesn't,
away.
I can't.
Let's by consensus take off that after the oh, you've already done. There you are. Yeah, you're on it. Don, you had your nope. Okay. All right. Good. Is anyone opposed to the motion? No one is opposed. All right. Seeing no further business, I call the meeting adjourned. Thank God. Sleep.